Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to everybody in chat. Welcome to the lurkers. Welcome to our replay crew. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here or watching replay. I appreciate it so much because obviously I wouldn't be here if it's not for you guys. Welcome to, this is for anybody new here. This is our Missing Person Monday live stream. We do this every Monday. We've been featuring cold cases, missing person cold cases from the 50 United States for the past few months. And tonight we are going to be doing Utah. So please keep in mind that any thoughts, opinions, theories expressed here tonight they're just our own. They're not stated as fact. So I encourage anyone and everyone to, if you're interested in these cases or any missing persons cases, do your research, look at them for yourself, form your own opinions, because obviously we don't know exactly what happened, but this is, to bring awareness to these cases is what we're here for. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. It's been hot, hot, hot here in Arkansas, as usual. And I haven't worked the last couple of days because it's been so hot, and I'll probably take tomorrow off too, because I think after tomorrow, it may get down below 100 actual temperature. Heat index has been around 110. But anyway, I'm almost ready for cold weather, and I don't even like cold weather. I like the in-between weather, which we might get a little bit of spring and a little bit of fall here in Arkansas, but that's about it. But anyway, let me see who has checked in so far. Miss Barb was first to check in. Hello, Miss Barb. Always good to see you. Chris was second. Good to see you, sir. There's our buddy Arctic. He was third. Always good to see Arctic. Please check out Arctic. Please check out Miss Barbara at Timmy's Legacy. Miss Paula's here. She checked in fourth. Please check out Miss Paula. See who else. Absolutely. We have the best community, in my opinion. Oh, speaking of weather, yeah, Chris said he's glad it's almost getting cool. I know. It's yeah, like Arctic said, yeah, today it was 101 actual temperature. I don't know what the heat index was. I think it's supposed to be like 110 heat index, but yeah, I'm over it. Yes, we'll definitely be happy. I'm so over this hot weather. Yep, Miss Paula's correct. The days are starting to get a little bit shorter, little by little. Yep, it's already dark here too. Arctic said it's dark outside here. Yes, that's what I don't like though about because we were just and actually that's some of the reason not storms here tonight, but that I don't have Cam tonight because I got to watching TV and let time get away from me. Didn't have time to get all ready. But anyway, so no Cam tonight. Plus, I'm hoping it'll help out a little bit with the farm signal. Maybe not having the Cam on. But anyway, so I was watching this show. It's called In the Eye of the Storm. I think it comes on Discovery Channel. And mostly, they feature like hurricanes and tornadoes in real time from footage and stuff. So yeah, I don't like the storms. I like the storms. I don't like the tornadoes. We'll put it that way. So that's one thing about our here in Arkansas. The best part of the year here, spring and fall, when the temperature's nice. But unfortunately, that's when the majority of the bad weather is. Yep, there you go. Artist says, I prefer the cold. I can always put more clothes on. The neighbors complain if I take too much off. I hear what you're saying. I hear you. All right, I think I'm caught up. So bring the slideshow up. Like I said, we're doing Utah tonight. I think we got two more, maybe Washington and Wyoming, and we will be done covering the 50 states as of this round. Like I said, unfortunately there's so many missing that we probably have to. We could start all over again and go through them, the states, a lot of times, unfortunately. But hey, Junior, good to see you, sir. He is in Michigan tonight. How's your weather, Junior? We were talking about weather. Good to see you, Junior. Or yeah, Junior. Telling you. Okay. So I believe I have 7 cases to take a look at tonight. Mostly cold cases. There may be in 1 or 2 that's a little bit more recent missing, but for the most part, they are cold cases. So first, we have Nancy Perry. Oh, maybe it is Vermont. Yeah, because it's it should be Vermont because it's in alphabetical order. So Utah, yeah, it should be Vermont. Sorry, I forgot Vermont. I was trying to go through. I forgot my alphabet. Anyway, yes, it's probably Vermont. You're probably correct, Miss Paula. All right, so this is Nancy Perry Baird. Nancy has been missing since July 4th, 1975, from East Layton, Utah. She's a white female. She was just 23 years old at the time she went missing. She'll be 73 years old as of 2025. When she went missing, she was 5'2" to 5'3" tall and 90 to 100 pounds. So she's just a little thing. With blonde, reddish hair, hazel eyes. It says she may use the last name Perry, and she has small scars on the inside of each wrist, and her blood type is O positive. She was last seen wearing a light blue pinstripe smock with an embroidered FINA station logo, like the gas station. I don't even know if the FINA gas stations are around anymore. Probably not. A blue halter top, blue shorts, and a small gold pinky ring with a ruby in the center and 2 smaller rubies on each side. So Nancy was last seen at the FINA gas station in the 200 block of South Highway 89 in East Layton, Utah on July 4th, 1975. She was employed there as a service station attendant. A police officer on patrol saw her working alone there. And at around 5:30 p.m., less than 15 minutes later, she was discovered missing. So from what I've read in this case, there was a very narrow window of time. It's like it says 15 to 20 minutes from when she was last seen to when I believe customers came in and she was not there. So whatever happened very quickly. There was no evidence of robbery of the gas station. There was no indications of a struggle, but about $10 worth of gasoline from the station's pumps had not been paid for. Nancy's car was found locked and parked in the station lot where she had left it. Her car keys were left behind. Her purse was inside the station, containing her medication and around $167 from a recently cashed check. At the time of her disappearance, Nancy lived near the gas station. Her 4-year-old son lived with relatives, and her ex-husband lived in Wyoming. So it's considered unlikely, they say, that she would have left of her own free will. Just before her disappearance, witnesses saw a truck at the station. And I think there was, because I do have an article to go with this, there was either multiple vehicles seen or just different descriptions of one vehicle that was seen. So this vehicle was never identified and is unclear whether it had anything to do with Nancy's disappearance. Investigators questioned Nancy's ex-husband and 2 male friends in her case. All of them had been out of state at the time that she disappeared. They passed polygraph exams, so they were cleared. So this is one that has been a speculation that Nancy could have been a victim of Ted Bundy. So authorities believe that Nancy was a victim of Ted Bundy. So we all know who Ted Bundy is at this point, I'm sure. It should be noted, however, that Bundy never confessed to Nancy's murder. Now, with serial offenders, that could go either way. You know, sometimes they tell the truth, sometimes they don't. And in fact, when he was specifically asked about Nancy, he vehemently denied it, and this was just prior to his execution. And then they said also in several ways her abduction does not fit the profile of Bundy's other crimes. They said Bundy never drove a truck. I believe Bundy drove a Volkswagen Beetle or something. And Nancy was the only possible victim of his that was abducted from a gas station. So obviously Nancy's case remains open and unsolved. So if you have any information regarding Nancy's case, you can call the Davis County Sheriff's Department at 801-451-4100. Let me get so this article I have does go in, discuss the possibility, the theory, speculation that Nancy was one of Bundy's victims. This is from KSLTV.com. Once again, all the links to all the online articles that I use are in the description box, as always, so feel free to read them at your leisure if you so choose. This is from May of 2023. It says, blamed on Bundy, cold podcast challenges popular theory in Nancy Baird cold case. So a young woman disappeared from a gas station where she worked on the 4th of July, 1975. And investigators at the time believed someone had abducted and took the life of Nancy Perry Baird, but they were never able to locate her remains. For nearly 50 years, police and many of Nancy's own relatives speculated that she might have fallen prey to serial offender Ted Bundy. Now, a review of case files obtained exclusively by KSL's Cold podcast is casting doubt on that theory of Bundy's involvement while also revealing other leads overlooked by past investigators. So once again, Nancy, she married young. She was just out of high school. She had a son with her husband, Floyd, soon afterward, but their marriage lasted only a few years. By July of 1975, Nancy was 23 years old, single. She was raising her 4-year-old son. On the afternoon of July 4th, she left her son with her parents at their home in the small town of East Layton, Utah, and she went to work. She held a job as a clerk at a FINA brand gas station and convenience store near the southwest corner of US Highway 89 and Cherry Lane. East Layton was a town of only about 1,000 residents, so very, very small town. It had a police department comprised of 4 individuals, a part-time chief, 1 full-time officer, and 2 part-time reserve officers, which is not, I can tell you, it's not unusual for very small towns. I live in a small town of just barely, maybe scraping 2,000, and right now we have 2 police officers, and that's it. Plus, county comes in to help, and state police passes through. But yeah, so it's not unusual to have 1 or 2 officers at best. I lost my place. So at that time, none of the 4 police officers had attended Utah's police academy. Now, I don't know about that. To me, that seems a little odd, but so Cold obtained a report later written by the town's full-time officer, David Anderson. He described stopping by the FINA station between 5:10 and 5:15 p.m. on the day that Nancy disappeared. Anderson wrote that he did interact with Nancy and everything seemed 10-4, indicating that nothing appeared wrong. Anderson wrote he then left the FINA station and drove to another gas station on the opposite corner of the highway. And in his report, he described looking back toward the FINA station between 5:15, 5:30. He noticed a green van parked outside. He, quote, went over to check it out, and then he didn't explain why the van had piqued his suspicion or his interest. So Officer Anderson's report does not say what became of the van or whether he made contact with its driver. It only says that by the time Anderson arrived back at the FINA station, he discovered that Nancy was no longer there. So Nancy's, once again, her purse, keys, and car were all still at the station. Officer Anderson saw no signs of a struggle inside of the convenience store. Anderson made contact with his chief, who in turn requested the assistance of the Davis County Sheriff's Office in mounting a search for Nancy. So East Layton police used credit card receipts from the FINA station to identify customers who had potentially interacted with Nancy prior to her disappearance. One of them was a resident of the neighboring town of Kaysville, Utah, named Denzel. Davis County Sheriff's Detective Kenny Payne interviewed Mr. Williams on Saturday, July 5th, 1975, which is the day after Nancy was last seen. And in a report, Payne wrote that Williams had taken 2 of his children, David, 14, and Jana, 9 at the time, to the FINA station about 5:15 p.m. the prior afternoon. So the Williams children had entered the convenience store while their father remained outside. He was putting gas in the car. Payne also interviewed David and Jana, and the children reportedly described seeing 2 men at the counter, presumably speaking to Nancy while they were at the convenience store. David Williams said in an interview, I didn't want to interrupt this conversation they were having. They weren't in a hurry to leave. So David said that he provided his father's credit card to Nancy to pay for the gas. Nancy completed the transaction. Then Jana Williams approached the counter with a bottle of soda. Detective Payne wrote in the report she had 28 cents and the total purchase price was 29 cents. However, Nancy let her have the bottle for the 28 cents. So the report also said that Nancy had not appeared alarmed or nervous at the time of her interaction with Jana. Jana said in a later interview that she remembers that Nancy was very kind. The Williams family did not report seeing a police officer at the FINA station at the time of their visit, which suggested that Officer Anderson departed before they arrived. And they say, if true, that made Jana the last person known to have seen Nancy alive. And Nancy said that I didn't know how somebody could take a pretty lady like that. So Detective Kenny Payne asked David and Jana to describe the two men that they had seen talking to Nancy. They said that the two men both appeared to be in their early 20s, 23 or 24 years old. The first one was skinny, had shoulder-length hair, a full beard and mustache. He was wearing a frayed denim jacket. The second man also had a full mustache and beard. His hair, they said his hair was dark but sun-bleached, and he wore a yellow long-sleeve shirt. So Detective Payne used a tool called Identikit to build composite images of the two men based on the information provided by David and Jana. The composites were not included among the case files provided to Cold, a podcast by the Davis County Sheriff's Office, however. But it says that the Cold podcast located an antique identikit and was able to recreate the composites using information contained in Kenny Payne's report. So David and Jana had never before seen the composites. Police had not shown them the images back in 1975. So I wonder, what if they're going to do composites why wouldn't they show the composites to the kids and say, is this anywhere close to looking like the people that you saw? But anyway, but when they were shown the composites later, both of them said that the composites did resemble the men that they had seen talking to Nancy on the day that she disappeared. David said they look familiar to me. It's amazing what you remember, even though it's been almost 50 years. So the two men are described in police reports as hippie types. David Williams told Cold that he also recalled seeing a brown, what he called hippie van outside the FENA station, though this detail was not included in any of the reports obtained by Cold through the FOIA request. Jana recalled feeling scared at 9 years old, worried that the men that she and her brother described to police might seek revenge. She said, I thought they would find me. The long forgotten feeling resurfaced when she viewed the composites. She said, I got a little bit sick to my stomach when I saw him because I do remember him. So I cannot not imagine. She was only, I believe, 9 years old. So East Layton Police and the Davis County Sheriff's Office narrowed in on several persons of interest in the days and weeks after Nancy disappeared. Among them was her ex-husband, Floyd. Case files show that he did provide an alibi, telling detectives that he had been camping with a friend in the area of Jackson Hole, Wyoming on the day that Nancy disappeared. Detectives also questioned several of Nancy's current and former boyfriends. One of them, a man named Dennis, told investigators that he had been out of state vacationing with his family at the time, and investigators later verified that story, or his alibi. The case files show that police searched Nancy's home. They took her address book, a hairbrush with strands of her hair tangled in the bristles, as well as one of her photo albums. So what's interesting is that sheriff's detectives compared pictures in the album, in her photo album, to the two composite images of the men that David and Jana had reported seeing. And a sheriff lieutenant wrote, there was a very similar likeness of one of the identikit composites to a picture from the photo album. And the report said that the photo that had a resemblance to one of these composite sketches had the name Monty on it, Monty. So deputies soon identified the man in the photo as Monty Torres. They showed the photo to their witness, Jana, who they say positively identified Monty Torres as one of the hippie type individuals that was in the service station. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he had anything to do with her disappearance, but so Davis County detectives learned that Torres was in Pocatello, Idaho. So they asked the Bannock County, Idaho Sheriff's Office to locate and interview him. According to a report, a Bannock County detective made contact with Torres, describing him as quite jittery and nervous. Torres reportedly said that he had been at Lava Hot Springs on the afternoon of Nancy's disappearance. He later submitted to a polygraph exam about this alibi. Records relating to that polygraph were not included with the case files obtained by the Cold podcast, but newspaper stories from the time indicate the polygraph did not reveal any signs of deception. So investigators clear Torres as a person of interest. Davis County detectives also interviewed one of Nancy's friends, an Ogden woman named Dolores, in the early days of the investigation. The information that Dolores provided has not previously been revealed. So Dolores reportedly told investigators that she and Nancy had gone bar hopping along Washington Boulevard in Ogden, Utah, 2 nights prior to Nancy's disappearance. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on the morning of July 3rd, Nancy dropped Dolores off at her home, at Dolores's home on 36th Street. Nancy then departed alone, presumably heading for her home in Layton. A sheriff's lieutenant wrote that Dolores said that Nancy returned a half hour later at about 3 a.m. and, quote, appeared to be quite shaken and frightened, and that this fellow named Tom in a yellow van had followed her home and was basically essaying her or trying to essay her. So now we have 2 mention of vans. Officer Anderson mentioned a van. He said it was a green van. And then Dolores said that when Nancy came back, that Nancy said that a man in a yellow van named Tom had followed her home. So Dolores reportedly said that she heard Tom make a threatening comment toward Nancy, a sexual comment toward Nancy. Dolores ordered Tom to leave, at which point the man drove away in a yellow Volkswagen van. So the case files did include a full name for Tom, but the Davis County Sheriff's Office redacted his last name from the reports provided to the Cold podcast. Dolores is now deceased. So as a result, the Cold podcast was not able to independently verify the information about Tom or definitively identify him. The files do not indicate whether Tom was located or questioned by officers from either the Sheriff's Office or East Layton Police back in 1975. But East Layton's part-time police chief, Ray Adams, told the Deseret News, quote, we are at a dead end in the search for Nancy, in a story published on July 28, 1975. So less than a month. So now we get to the Ted Bundy theory. So Ted Bundy was first arrested 3 weeks later after Nancy disappeared, about 30 miles south of East Layton in the suburbs of Salt Lake City. So Bundy at the time was suspected in the November 8th, 1974, attempted kidnapping of Carol Durant from outside the Fashion Place Mall in Murray, Utah. Police investigating the Durant case seized Bundy's car, which is a light tan 1968 Volkswagen Beetle. They collected numerous hair fibers from the interior. The Davis County Sheriff's Office provided a sample of Nancy's hair taken from her hairbrush to the FBI for comparison to the unidentified hairs collected from Bundy's car. FBI records indicate that federal agents did not find a match to Nancy's hair in Ted Bundy's car. But still, some investigators continued operating on a belief that Bundy was somehow involved in whatever had happened to Nancy. Former East Layton Police Reserve Officer Thomas Jackson said there was a suspicion of him. In July of 1975, Thomas Jackson was the most junior member of the East Layton Police Force. Case records show that Jackson did not play a significant role in the investigation. But Jeppson told Cold that he had not bought into the speculation about Bundy, and he had instead wondered if he actually wondered if his colleague, Officer Anderson, might have been the offender. And Anderson was the one that said that he had gone in and seen Nancy and then left and then saw this green van. And then, less than around 15 minutes later, he was back over there and she was gone. So Officer Anderson had only been an officer at East Layton for about 10 months at the time of Nancy's disappearance. As several former law enforcement sources familiar with East Layton police operations during the 1970s have told the Cold podcast that the majority of Officer Anderson's time was spent patrolling U.S. Highway 89. So he would have been in that area of the gas station a lot, presumably. So former Reserve Officer Jeppson said that meant that Officer Anderson had spent a great deal of time at the Fina station. And Jeppson also said Anderson spent too much time looking at women. So that was a quote from him, and that's just his opinion. So Officer Anderson left his job with the East Layton Police Department a short time after the disappearance of Nancy. Case trackers do not indicate that he was ever challenged or questioned about his account of Nancy's disappearance. Thomas Jeppson then replaced David Anderson as East Layton's only full-time officer, and Jeppson said he deferred on handling Nancy's investigation, telling the Davis County Sheriff's Office that he preferred that they manage the case. Jeppson said that he wanted to let someone else to handle it because he did not want to mess it up, which I can't say that I blame him there. So a few months later, in 1986, Thomas Jeppson also quit the East Layton PD to take a job in the private security sector, and the Nancy's case then lapsed into cold status. So around that same time, on March 1st of 1976, a judge found Bundy guilty of the attempted kidnapping of Carol Durant. And a few months later, Bundy did arrive at the Utah State Prison to begin serving his sentence. Utah extradited Bundy to Colorado in 1977, where Bundy faced charges related to the suspected homicide of Ann Campbell 2 years earlier. So we know that Bundy escaped twice from custody in Colorado, and then during his second escape, that's when he went to Florida. And I believe is when he took the lives of the nurses, or the nursing school. So while standing trial for the Florida homicides in 1979, Bundy told one reporter in a recorded telephone conversation that he was, of course, innocent of all the crimes for which he had been accused and convicted. Bundy said in a recording, quote, "Police officers, they want to solve crimes, and sometimes I don't think they really try to think things through. They're willing to take the convenient alternative, and the convenient alternative is me," end quote. So we know the jury did not agree. On July 24th, 1979, the jury found Bundy guilty of homicide. And a week later, Bundy received the first of 2 DPs that would keep him finally in custody. So it took nearly a decade before before he got the DP was carried out on January 24th, 1989. And days before the execution, Bundy began granting interviews to police investigators from several states, including Utah. He took responsibility for a large number of unsolved homicides and described where police might locate the still missing victims. Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office Dennis Couch did interview Bundy for about 90 minutes on January 22nd, 1989. During the interview, Bundy said that he had committed 5 homicides in Utah. So police suspected Bundy's involvement with the deaths or disappearances of Deborah Kent, Nancy Wilcox, Melissa Smith, and Laura Aim in Utah. And many in law enforcement circles also speculated that Bundy might have kidnapped and taken the life of Nancy. So Detective Couch's interview with Bundy was audio recorded, and in the recording, Bundy did deny having any knowledge of Nancy. Detective Couch asked Bundy, "Do you recall what type of place it was that Nancy was working at or where it was located?" Bundy replied, "No, I didn't have anything to do with that." And later in the interview, Couch showed Bundy a picture of Nancy, and he said that Bundy said, "Nancy Baird, who is that?" And he seemed not to recognize Nancy's photo. So the Cold podcast said that they uncovered new evidence suggesting that Bundy was likely telling the truth when he denied any knowledge of Nancy's disappearance. It came by way of a professional archivist and researcher named Tiffany Jean, who in 2019 began gathering and compiling Ted Bundy case files from several states and police agencies. So she says, "I looked at the Nancy Baird case a little bit, and I thought that it didn't quite fit Bundy's MO. The composites of the two hippie-type men provided by David and Jana did not resemble Ted Bundy. None of the witnesses mentioned in Nancy's case files obtained by the Cold podcast described seeing a vehicle matching Bundy's Volkswagen Beetle at the Fina station." Tiffany said that records from the Carol Durant attempted kidnapping case revealed that Bundy had briefly dated a Salt Lake City woman during the summer of 1975, and she provided a statement to investigators about Bundy following his arrest, but has never spoken publicly about their time together. Tiffany said, "I was able to find her phone number, and an associate of mine called her. She mentioned that Bundy had visited her family at a family reunion on the 4th of July of 1975, which is the day that Nancy went missing." So the lady that was dating him at the time said that the family reunion had occurred at her family's ranch. Knudsen did not respond to repeated requests for an interview with Cold. However, Knudsen's maternal grandfather was a prominent sheep rancher who did own a ranch in Fruitland near Strawberry Reservoir. That was more than 100 miles from the Fina station in East Layton where Nancy disappeared. So Tiffany said it would be pretty difficult for Bundy to have done both things on that day because it would have been quite a drive, but it doesn't seem like anyone else has ever put those together, that Bundy was with Knudsen on the day that this crime occurred. So like I said earlier, the disappearance of Nancy does remain unsolved. The Davis County Sheriff's Office recently assigned an investigator to review the cold case in cooperation with the Layton City Police Department. Their current focus is on persons of interest other than Ted Bundy. And for David Williams and his sister Jana, the last people known to have seen Nancy, the renewed attention on Nancy's long neglected case does raise new hope. They believe it's possible that someone might recognize the two men that they saw talking with Nancy minutes before she vanished. David said, "These images brought back memories to us. We hope that will do the same for others." So once again, anyone with information about Nancy's disappearance, can email the Cold podcast. Best bet, call the Davis County Sheriff's Office. The number should be on the slide, or 911. See, I don't know. I don't get really Bundy vibes from this case, but as always, these are just my opinions, but I would love to know what you guys think. I know that was a long article, but good information in it. So let me take a break for a minute and get caught up in your comments. I think I forgot to mark where I left off. Let me get back down here. Oh, okay, there we go. Chris said, "Don't forget about Rosie Tapia." Oh, was that a Vermont or a Utah? I can't remember. I know I have that name on my list, but I don't know if I included it tonight. I can't remember. Junior said it's been cooler in his neck of the woods. He just came back from his walk. There's Miss Doodle. She probably came in a while ago. Hello, hello. Good to see you, ma'am. Oh yes, I do remember that one because I remembered when I started looking up cases. I remember what you said. I believe it was last Monday when I said that I was going to do Utah. You said you're going to have to look at Susan Powell, and wow, that definitely a lot of stuff going on in there, and nothing good, nothing good. But we will go over it absolutely because after reading just at the very least all the information that the Trolley Project had, and then I looked at some other articles. I have an opinion definitely on that case. Hey GP, welcome. Good to have you here. That's what I wondered too. Arctic said she had because Nancy had small scars on the inside of each wrist, and Arctic said scars on the inside of her wrist. Had she previously tried to unalive herself? That's I'm assuming. I just assumed that once again, but it didn't. I couldn't find a whole lot on her case. But I wonder the same thing myself. Absolutely, but I do not know for sure. Yes, the vehicle. Yes, so it's interesting that in all the witness accounts, I believe, I don't know if the Jana and David's account, but we had Officer Anderson that said he saw a green van, and then Dolores, who was with Nancy the night before, they were going to some bars, and then Nancy had come back later and said that a man named Tom in a yellow van had followed her around and attempted to assault her. So we got a green van, a description of a green van, description of a yellow van. So I don't know. Yeah, Arctic said it's the right area and time frame to be Bundy. That is true. Miss Paula said he does seem like the type. Yeah, but yes, Bundy drove a VW Bug, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't have switched vehicles. Absolutely. See, I didn't think I'd seen any FINA gas stations in a long time. I can't remember if I'd seen them any when I was a kid. I remember hearing about them. But FINA, Arctic said FINA is no longer around. They merged with Total gas stations in 1999. Let's see. Ms. Paula said, is that the description of the suspect or suspects? The description that, are you talking about the ones that were made, that the composite sketches were made from? It was the description of both two men, what they call hippie type men. And actually, it does have a picture in this article that I read from that you can look at. The composite sketches actually look just alike, except one has longer, like shoulder length hair on it, and the other one doesn't. It has shorter hair. But yeah, let me find the descriptions again. So they both appeared to be in their early 20s, 23 or 24 years old. The first was skinny, with shoulder length hair, a full beard and mustache, wearing a frayed denim jacket. The second man also had a full mustache and beard. They said his hair was dark but sun bleached, and he wore a yellow long sleeve shirt. But yeah, if you go look at the article, which I don't know, it might let me, hold on, let me try to screen share it right quick. But they both look basically the same with a different length hair. Let me see if it'll share. So there are the two composite sketches that were made. You can see them. Like I said, basically exactly the same. Except one has like shoulder length hair. Let me take the comment down right quick so you can see it better. One has shoulder length hair. One has shorter, just like below the ears hair. But that's the composite sketches from the descriptions of Jayla and David, who were the children. They were 12, I believe 12 and 9 at the time. So, like I said, we all know how we feel about sketches around here. Let's see. Junior says he can't remember what he looked like 50 years ago. Oh, I can't either. I would have been 4 years old. I've done the same thing, Doodle. I've done the same thing. Junior says he loses car keys every day. People tell me to put them in the same place every time, and I forget to. Yeah. Oh, things jumped again. Hold on. Hey, Miss Farr, good to see you. She's listening while piss farting. That must be an Australian phrase. I like that though. Good to have you here. Arctic says hi-fi murders or homicides in 1974 involved 2 vans. I wonder if there's any possible connection there. What is that? What are the hi-fi homicides? I have not heard of that. I'll have to look that up. Interesting. So that would mean either possibly more than one offender or one offender using 2 different vehicles, obviously. That's a good question. Artist says, how far is East Layton from Ogden? Let me see if I can find out. Somebody's probably already looked it up. Let me make sure before Hey, Miss PJ, good to see you. Miss Paula wants to know, is it possible that Bundy did not remember? I'm assuming you mean Bundy didn't remember Nancy at the time. Possible, but if you go by what the experts say, most serial offenders remember every one of their victims. You know, they're maybe not their names, maybe some, you know, but definitely what they look like, where they took them at, where they dumped them at. I mean, I've heard, you know, I've heard interviews about and from serial offenders that, you know, years and years and years and years later, they have, you know, gone back and said, oh, you can find, you know, those get shown a picture. Oh yeah, I remember her. You know, she was such and such, and I buried her or put her remains at this certain place, and lo and behold, they've gone to that location and found remains. Yep, absolutely. Doodle says, and this stuff is why I call vans a creeper vans. Absolutely. Let's see. Miss Doodle has been a member for 11 months. She says, thank you for all of your hard work. Oh, no, thank you too, ma'am, for everything you do and everybody else out there. We get to put a cow in the pasture. Thank you so much, ma'am. It is very much appreciated. Thank you for your continued support. Arctic says he doesn't think it's Bundy. Yeah. Hey Mustang, good to see you. Sorry if I missed you earlier if you commented. Mustang says Samuel Little knew each and every one of his victims. Absolutely. Oh, Miss Barb says her dad had one of those vans. I think back in the 70s, just about everybody either had one or knew somebody who had one of those vans. All right, so Arctic had asked me how far it is from, was it East Layton to Ogden? You me picking on my keyboard. Let's see what I can come up with here. Only about 12 miles, it says. You can see there 18 minutes, 12 miles via US 89 north, which is, that's the US 89 is the where the gas station was. It was on that road, I believe. That Fina gas station where she was working at. Oops. So very, very close. Very close. Let me get caught up real quick. So was okay. So yeah, I did mention Ogden. I was going to ask you where you you'll have to tell me, or I'm gonna have to look up the Okay, excellent. That's what I was going to ask you. So Arctic says, so that's the distance between the hi-fi homicides and her going missing. Interesting. I see what you're getting at now. I'm definitely gonna have to look up that. Yeah, it's only 12 miles, 18 minutes on US 89, which is I believe that's where the gas station was, where she disappeared from, was on US 89 or very close to it. I think it was on 89. Very interesting. We'll definitely have to look into that. I've never heard of that. Let me look right quick and then we will get back. High five. Oh, not high five. Let's see what I can. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I went to the wrong tab. Hold on. Oh, goodness gracious. I can't type tonight. Okay, we'll go to good old Wikipedia. So the hi-fi homicides were the torture of 5 people, resulting in 3 deaths during a robbery at the hi-fi shop, a home audio store in Ogden, Utah, on the evening of April 22nd, 1974. Several men entered the hi-fi shop shortly before closing time and began taking hostages. They forced their victims to drink drain cleaner, which they believed would poison the hostages, but instead cause burns. So it did include lots of violence and the brutal essay of an 18-year-old woman before 3 victims were GSW'd. So it says police only had enough evidence to convict 3 enlisted U.S. Air Force airmen, Dale Selby Pierre, William Andrews, and Keith Roberts. The 3 others involved were never caught. Interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to look into that. Absolutely. Because you said that it would mention 2 different vans. Interesting. Definitely gonna have to look into that. All right. Oh, let me get my. Come on. There we go. Get my slideshow back up there. Yeah, definitely with the shag carpet in the vans. I call it like the hippie van, or the Scooby Doo van, the mystery machine, or the creeper van in real life. Junior says he's always wanted a VW van. Okay, yeah. Artist said 3 people were prosecuted for the hi-fi incident, but it's believed that more were involved. Yep. Hey, Trial Junkies United. Good to see you. Stopping. She said, I'm assuming it's Mrs. Z. It says, stopping by to say hi. We have company from out of town. I hit the thumbs up. We'll check out with the rewatch crew later. Just wanted to say hi. Please check out Trial Junkies United. Chris sent me a link to a live stream that they did that she did and her sidekick, a doc, did the other night, and I actually watched a couple of her live streams last night. So good to see her stopping by. So definitely check them out. And somebody can throw the link in if you want to. Absolutely. All right. So that was Nancy. So next we have Bobby Ann Campbell. Let me get her information. There it is. So Bobby Ann has been missing since January 7th, 1995 from Salt Lake County, Utah. She was just 24 years old when she went missing. She'll be 55 years old as of 2025. At the time she went missing, she was 5'1" and 105 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. She has a 2-inch scar on her right shoulder and several tattoos, including a mushroom and a sunbeam on her right leg and a rose on her left calf. Does not give any clothing description, but it says that Bobby Ann may have a problem with substance abuse. But as you know, here on this channel, it doesn't matter who you are, everybody has issues. We cover everybody. So Bobby Ann was last seen leaving the residence that she shared with her boyfriend on East 11900 South in Salt Lake County, Utah on January 7th, 1995. She planned to drive to go pick up her paycheck from SOS Staffing Services, then go to the bank and the grocery store. So Bobby Ann never picked up her check. She never returned home. She left her young daughter at her residence, has not been in contact with anyone, which family members state is uncharacteristic of her. Authorities believe that Bobby Ann was sighted at a local park about 6 months after she went missing. And about 9 months after her disappearance, her car was found unlocked and abandoned at 200 South 1100 West, which is near the Jordan River. So I always get nervous when it mentions water, but so her makeup, her purse, her clothes, money, Christmas presents from 1994 were still there, but there was no sign of her at the scene where the car was found. Her grandparents actually reported her missing to the authorities. They said that she did lead a transient lifestyle in 1995, and that may have put her in danger due to her possible drug usage. There's been no activity on her credit cards or financial accounts since 1995, and her case remains unsolved. So if you have any information, you can call the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office at 801-743-5826. Let me see what I was able to find on. So actually, there is a theory, a prevailing theory in the articles. And I've got about 3 articles. They're just very short, contain information of some tips that were received about her case and what I believe her daughter thinks happened due to these tips. Let me find the first one. There it is. So this first one is from fox13now.com. It is from December of 2017. A woman pleads for answers at 23 years after her mother disappeared in Salt Lake City. So Bobby Ann Campbell has been missing for more than 2 decades, but her daughter is not giving up hope in her search for answers. Her daughter, Stephanie Cook, says, the last time I saw my mom, it was 23 years ago today. On the anniversary of Nancy's disappearance, or Bobby Ann's disappearance, her family was and still is desperate for answers. Stephanie says, there's not a day that goes by that I don't suffer with some thought about it. So Stephanie shows pictures that were taken decades ago. While she was only 5 years old then, Stephanie remembers clearly the day that her mother went missing. She recalled, my mom did laundry that morning. It was just a normal morning. When 24-year-old Bobby Ann Campbell left to run an errand, she never came back. And Stephanie said it was really out of character for her to not come back. So police did get involved right away, but weeks went by. Then 8 months later, Bobby Ann's car was found abandoned in Salt Lake City near the Jordan River. And once again, Stephanie says it was unlocked. It still had the laundry in it from that morning, but her mother was nowhere to be found. And for the past intervening years, she has been robbed of a relationship with her mom. She says she wasn't there when I got married. She wasn't there for the birth of my 2 children. It's just not fair. Absolutely. And now Stephanie's young son asks about his grandmother, whom he has never met. And Stephanie says it's heartbreaking. I just want to be able to tell him the truth. I just want to know the truth. So despite the years passing by with no answers, Stephanie won't give up her search. She says, I feel like I need to get closure for her. She deserves to be found. She's a good mom, and I loved her very much, and I still love her very much. So in the past years, Unified Police have received some tips, but nothing leading them to any idea of what happened. So that this article was obviously written before the tips came in. But in any case, if you have any information on Bobby Ann's case, call the authorities. The phone number is on the slide. So that was just, it's always hard reading family members, especially kids. All right, so the next one is the new tip that came in. And this article is from, when is it from? January of 2018. So it says the daughter of a missing woman said that new leads in the 23-year-old disappearance case suggest that her mother passed away accidentally. So Bobby Ann Campbell vanished on December 27th, 1994, after leaving her then 5-year-old daughter Stephanie at a friend's house while she ran errands. Stephanie says she was going to pick up her paycheck. I fell asleep waiting, and she never came home. After a round of news reports in late December suggested that Stephanie had passed away in an apparent accident, Stephanie said the family has received new tips. Excuse me. She said, we had quite a few anonymous tips come in that lead us to believe that my mom is no longer with us. At this point, I just want to know where her body is. So Jason Jeppson, a private investigator retained by Stephanie, said the tips indicated that the individuals with Stephanie at the time of her death panicked and that they disposed of her body. So I don't know if it says it in this article, but they suspect the tip that they got was that Bobby Ann had passed away of an OD, and then whoever was with her at the time, like they said, panicked and disposed of her body. The private investigator Jeppson says they didn't reveal how they disposed of her. We don't know if she was buried or if they put her in the Jordan River. So Campbell or Bobby Ann's car was eventually located in 1995, roughly 8 months after her disappearance, not far from the Jordan River. Stephanie says it was registered under my grandfather's name. He got a parking ticket in the mail, and I believe the car had expired plates. He drove to the location of the ticket, and he found the car. So it wasn't even the police that found the car. That's not a knock on the police, but they just found it. It was written a ticket for it apparently, and they write, the address of where the ticket was written or whatever, and that her grandfather went over there and found the car. So Stephanie says that once again, she still deals with the pain of growing up without her mom. She says, my life is a roller coaster. My good days are really good, but my bad days are really bad. There are days where I just can't even get out of bed. I can't imagine. So Stephanie said that she was hopeful that the new leads would be able to provide further answers and closure in her mom's case. She says, I just want to find my mom. I want to give her a proper funeral. So Unified Police Detective Ben Pender said that Cook and Jeppson, Stephanie and the private investigator were in the process of providing the new information to detectives and that they would investigate the lead. Private investigator Jeppson said, we are going to get someone that's going to do the right thing, come clean with their conscience, and they're going to tell us what happened to her and give us a good idea of where we can look. So the last, hold on. So they did send a dive team down regarding this tip that they possibly put Bobby Ann's body in the Jordan River. If my article will come up. There we go. So this first one is from, or this next one is from October of 2019. Bobby Ann Campbell, so disappeared Christmas, or 2 days after Christmas 1994. Stephanie has searched for answers for decades and now thinks that she could be closer to the truth, but the truth may not bring much comfort. She says if she is in the Jordan River, her friends threw her out like trash and kept it a secret from me all this time. And she said that is not easy. Stephanie says that a former friend of her mother's recently came forward with a story that Stephanie, or Bobby Ann, sorry, I keep saying Stephanie, Bobby Ann passed away of an OD and that someone wrapped her in a carpet and tossed her into the water. And so once again, her vehicle was found near the river. And together with private investigator Jason Jeppson, Stephanie coordinated a team of volunteer divers who did search the water. The group produced a piece of fabric. They believe it could be the reported carpet that they said that she was possibly wrapped up in, as well as a unique earring the family says appears to resemble something that Bobby Ann wore before her death. So an earlier magnet fishing expedition in the area produced a set of keys. One of the keys belonging to a General Motors vehicle could be Bobby Ann's, the family thinks. Police were notified of the new potential witness testimony, but Stephanie says when police interviewed the woman, her story changed, and police were not present when the diving mission took place. So the last one I have is very, very interesting. Let me find it. It's actually an interview with one of the divers, and it's very interesting what he says he thinks he found, which would be right in line, in my opinion, with what this former friend told Stephanie that allegedly, supposedly happened to her mom. Let's see. Oh, that's the same article. Wait a minute. I was clicked on the wrong one. This one. Okay. I think I'm on the right one now. Yeah, article said, too bad the car is not still around to see if the key fits the car. True. Oh, come on. Now the article's taking its sweet time. Get caught up on some comments right quick while it's loading. Thank you very much. There is Trial Junkies United. Link, you are most welcome. Absolutely. And there's our Arctics link. There's our Doodles link. There's Miss PJ's link. There's Miss Paula's link. Thank you guys for getting all the links in. Arctic says, well, I would imagine they didn't dump her in the river as normally a person will surface. Absolutely. Eventually, unless they weighed her down. Yeah, and then he said, too bad the car's not still around to see if the key fits the car. Absolutely. See, I thought about that too with the body, but they said they claimed, or this friend of, supposed friend of Bobby Ann's that told Stephanie this, this is allegedly what happened. They said that they wrapped her in a carpet. So I'm just assuming that the carpet would have kept her down, All right, so this is from abc4.com. The Justice Files, possible clues found in Bobby Ann Campbell's disappearance, and it is from September of 2019. So another possible piece of a puzzle was added to a 1994 missing persons case. Volunteer divers discovered a piece of carpet in which Bobby Ann Campbell may have been wrapped in before being tossed into the Jordan River. Last week, ABC4 reported on an earlier find that included a part of an earring and car keys that may have belonged to Campbell. The Utah Cold Case Coalition and a family investigator tracked witnesses who claimed Campbell passed away of an OD and that she was wrapped in a rug or carpet and tossed into the Jordan River near 1200 West and 250 South. So Dusty Robley, a volunteer diver, was one of those who searched the river. He said, finding an object in the water, in my opinion, is 100% harder than finding it on land. I absolutely agree. He said that if the water is brown or black, there is little chance of seeing anything, and the Jordan River does fit that description. He says you could be 2 inches from something and not even know it's there. But he said they got lucky using a rope as part of their grid. They touched and felt their way along a targeted area in the river. And he says, I stuck my hand on it. I wasn't even sure that it was carpet. He said the item he was touching was very small and could not be moved. He said, I got my hand on it. It was something large buried deep down into the dirt. He said it was a brown shag type rug or carpet. And he said this was something, in his opinion, that had been in there for a very long time. So the divers also found a coat and a winter knit cap. The private investigator, Jason Jeppson, says we're feeling very optimistic that we're finally coming to some kind of conclusion here. He said it's taken me more than a year and a half to get divers to go in the Jordan at this location. The next step is to find traces of DNA that could be linked to Bobby Ann, which being in the water, I would doubt. I mean, and I could not find any articles past this one to see if, they eventually were able to recover anything. So, Kara Porter with the Utah Cold Case Coalition said we should be able to do a preliminary test to see if there's a connection, if they found DNA. And of course, there's going to be plenty of samples available because it is a large carpet. As for any trace of Campbell's remains, they say that's a more difficult task. Robley said a body is going to break down, potentially, decompose. Porter said they plan to continue searching the area, realizing what they are now looking for. Porter said, I think the reality is we will be looking for bones at this point. So I just thought that was very interesting. That might not have anything to do with Bobby Ann's case, because once again, like I said, I tried to look for anything, after this search, and I couldn't find anything. But now all I have access to is the Google machine. So I'm assuming that they have not been able to bring anything up yet or do any kind of DNA testing. But I thought it was very interesting, given the story that the friend told to Bobby Ann's daughter Stephanie. It did line up with what she said. What they may have found potentially, it did kind of line up with what the story was. But as always, like I said earlier, just, take this information, do with it what you will, form your own opinions. All right, so that was Bobby Ann. So this is a very interesting one. And I say interesting, not in a good way, obviously, but another one that, we know it's not possible. Somebody that just, seemingly vanished into thin air. And this may be the oldest one we have tonight. I always say that. And then there's an older one. But this is Reed Taylor Jeppson. So Reed has been missing since October 12th, 1964, from Salt Lake City, Utah. He was just 15 years old when he went missing. He will be 76 years old as of 2025. At the time he went missing, he was 5'6" tall and 140 to 150 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. He had braces on his upper and lower teeth at the time of his disappearance. He was last seen wearing a white cotton knit shirt, a reversible parka with one side black and one side blue, blue Levi's jeans, and sneakers. So Reed was last seen in his hometown of Salt Lake City on October 12th, 1964. After his family returned from church, he went out to feed his 2 dogs and take them for a walk. He lived near Immigration Canyon, near 1400 South and 3000 East. And they said he kept his dogs about 200 yards from the house. So he told his sister that he would be back within about half an hour in time for dinner. A friend saw Reed walking the dogs near the old St. Mary of the Wasatch building near Wasatch Boulevard at around 1 p.m. Reed and both dogs disappeared, and none of them have, neither Reed nor the dogs have been seen again. Both dogs were German short hair pointers, and it says one of them was a puppy. Reed was a sophomore at East High School and a member of the school football team at the time of his disappearance. He left behind 11 siblings. His loved ones don't believe that he ran away, as he was not having any problems. He left all of his belongings behind at home, including money that he had earned from his paper route. Reed's family described him as a good student and a popular teenager with many friends in Salt Lake City and in Montana, where his family kept a summer home. And one of his hobbies was training his dogs for bird hunting. So investigators stated there was no evidence of foul play in Reed's disappearance, but his case remains unsolved. See, it's just classified on Charlie Project as endangered missing. But I mean, I'm not saying there was foul play, but I mean, if somebody just snatched him. But the thing I have with this is what happened to the dogs. If somebody snatched him off the street or whatever, for one, you would think, I don't know how big of a place Salt Lake City is or was at the time back in the 60s, how busy it would have been. You would think that somebody would have seen something if he was snatched. But like I said, it's one of those where you just vanished into thin air. But if you have any information, you can call the Salt Lake City Police Department at 801-799-3000. Let me see what I had on him. I have an article from KSL.com from May of 2010. Police reopen missing persons case from 1964. So police in Salt Lake City reopened a 45-year-old missing persons case. They also launched a new website dedicated to missing persons. Let's see if that website is active. And I will put it in the, nope, page not found. I was going to say I would put it in the chat, but apparently it's not active. So the new website launched profiles missing persons in the Salt Lake area. One of those cases is that of Reed Jeppson. So Reed was 15 years old when he disappeared near his Salt Lake City home on October 11th, 1964. He went outside to walk his two German short-haired pointer dogs, and Jeppson and the two dogs were never seen again. So Reed's brothers and sisters say the past 45 years have been difficult, not knowing what happened to their brother. His sister Suzanne says it's one of those sweet sorrows that opens up a lot of pain. We've suffered a great loss as a family from him not being with us. And all they can do is wonder, who would he have married? What would his children have been like? So Suzanne says that she was preparing dinner after church that Sunday in October when her little brother Reed went outside. She reminded him about dinner, and unfortunately, she never saw him again. She said it would be just as if I'm talking to you and I turn around and you are gone. So there was a search, a police investigation, and friends and family all got involved. Suzanne says that someone, stupid ads. Hold on. Sorry, an ad popped up. Suzanne says that someone must have taken him because her brother would never leave his family. She says he was finding success in life. He had just made his first touchdown on the East High School football team. He had a paper route where he was earning his own money, and all of his money and his personal belongings were left at home. So days turned into weeks, then months, then years, and police closed the case in 1966, which was 2 years after he disappeared. So now the Jeppson family is grateful for this second look, even if it is years later, and they still hope that someone can come forward. Reed's sister Becky says it's exciting to know that he is thought about and that there's an opportunity that we may be able to find out what happened to him. The family doesn't think that he's still alive, but they just want to find him, obviously, to bring him home and to lay him to rest. His sister Christine says we might not know what happened to him, but to know where his remains are, that would bring us great peace. The family says they hope that the new missing persons website and new DNA database will all help. Police are taking DNA samples from all of Reed's siblings. The samples will be entered into 2 different databases for missing persons. Salt Lake City police hope that someone will remember something from Reed's case to give them a break. Cody Loogie, the detective assigned to Reed's disappearance, said motives change with time. Friends and acquaintances of Reed's or persons involved in his disappearance may be more willing to come forward today than they were 45 years ago, which we're hoping will lead to a break in the case. Excuse me. This case is one of 4 profiled on the new website, blah, 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 which apparently it was a bad link. But once again, if you have any information on Reed's case, you can call the Salt Lake City Police Department at 801-799-3000 or reference Reed Jeppson or case number 64-46859. So, like I said, these are the ones. There's always one in the bunch. It seems like that, just the kind that keeps me awake. When I can't sleep at night. Like, how does somebody we know they can't just vanish into thin air, but I mean, let's see if I had anything else. No, I didn't have. There was one other article, or just mentioned that I think I don't want to get my cases mixed up. That maybe there's possibility he could have just wandered off the street and gotten lost. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I've never been to Salt Lake City, so I don't know what the terrain is really. I don't know if it's mountainous, hilly. If there's any crevices or any embankments that he could have fallen. But it looks to me like that. What happened to the dogs? Where did the dogs go? To me, that's a lot too. Is where whether regardless if somebody did snatch him off the street, or if he did happen to have an accident and fall or something happened. I mean, it would look like the dogs would have went home or somebody would have found the dogs. I wonder what happened. So that leaves either, I mean, I don't know, either he left of his own accord, which they said would highly unlikely, and he took the dogs with him, or if he was snatched, somebody also snatched the dogs too, but that would, in broad daylight on the street. Like I said, I don't know how busy it is. Once again, I mean, it'd be kind of hard to snatch a 15-year-old, and he was a big boy. He was a football player, 15 years old. So you wouldn't think, it's not like it was a little child that you could just snatch and put and throw in a car. And then you got the two dogs. I mean, to me that's unlikely too. I mean, or doesn't make sense either. So I just, like I said, this one is one of those cases that just I'm at a loss. I don't know. All right. Let me get caught up in your comments, and we will move on. Absolutely. Thanks to all our mods, to everybody. Paula says, was he declared deceased? You're talking about Reed. Let me go back to, usually if they are deceased, or if they are declared deceased, the Charlie Project. I can't find the right one. There it is. Oh no, that's not the right one. Oh wait, I did have another article on him. Hold on. Let's see what this says. So this is from Hub Pages. Reed Jeppson, teenager vanishes with dogs. It is from updated February of 2025. So on October 11th, 1964, 15-year-old Reed Jeppson told his sister that he was going outside to feed his two dogs, but that he would be back in time for dinner, but he never returned. The investigation into his disappearance would uncover clues ranging from strange eyewitness sightings to a suspicious neighbor, but would ultimately lead nowhere. So Reed was born on May 28th, 1949, to Elizabeth and Edward. He was one of 11 children in a large Mormon family in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was an Eagle Scout. He was a good student. He was well liked by his peers. He had a part-time job as a paper boy. Once again, he also had the two German short-haired pointers. One was full-grown. One was a puppy. He was training them to hunt birds. Additionally, he played for his school's football team and recently scored his first touchdown. So at the time he went missing, he was a sophomore at East High School in Salt Lake City. So once again, on the morning of Sunday, October 11th, 1964, the Jeppson family attended church as per usual. When they returned home early that afternoon, Reed opened a can of dog food. He told his sister Suzanne that he was heading out to feed the dogs. She told him, hurry back. We're fixing to have dinner in 30 minutes. And he said he would be right back. So he was wearing the reversible black parka with blue lining, Levi's jeans. He left the home. He walked 200 yards to the family's dog kennel, and he was never seen again, nor were the dogs. So one of Reed's friends reportedly spotted him walking the dogs near the College of St. Mary of the Wasatch, which they said is approximately an hour away from his home. This was around 1 p.m. And after that, his movements are a mystery. So later that night, when Reed had been gone for almost 12 hours, his family filed a missing persons report with the Salt Lake City Police Department. The search began. Accompanied by the Jeppson family, law enforcement conducted an extensive search in and around Salt Lake City, including the foothills, but neither Reed nor his dogs nor any clue as to what happened to them were discovered. Sources were inconsistent about whether Reed was carrying any money with him that day, but according to the Deseret, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Deseret, the Deseret News on October 16th, 1964, it was reported he had $60 on him, which was money that he saved from his paperboy job, which is roughly equivalent to $582 today. If true, it is unclear what would have compelled him to carry, that much money with him if he had only intended to take a short walk with the dogs. There were a number of unconfirmed sightings of the dogs in the days following their disappearance, but law enforcement believed that these accounts are inaccurate and refer to different dogs. It says, although it may not be relevant to this case, one of the dogs had reportedly gone missing at an earlier date and returned after 2 weeks. So don't know if apparently that was not, you would assume that the family would have said, hey, one of the dogs came back if it was one of their dogs. So there were witnesses who claimed to see Reed as well, but none of these sightings were corroborated. Authorities in 3 states were notified of Reed's disappearance. At one point, law enforcement believed that Reed may have went to Missouri to visit a girl that he had met while working on a ranch one summer. However, that lead went nowhere. And to me, I don't know, I don't know, that might make more sense than anything else I can come up with, but how did he get there, So according to John Jeppson, who is one of Reed's older brother, a detective arrived at the family's home one day and requested to speak with John, who was 16 years old at the time. John complied. The two went for a drive. This is a partial account of John's conversation with the detective. So apparently the detective says, okay, John, where is he? Talking about Reed. And John says, I don't know. The detective says, you do know, and you have caused incredible heartache to your parents. You're hiding him. You're doing something in connection with his disappearance. Now it's time to stop playing games and tell us where he is. So apparently this is because this questioning or whatever was because one of Reed's friends who lived in their neighborhood had implicated John in Reed's disappearance. Unfortunately, it says the reasons for this are unknown. And for his part, John obviously maintained that he had no idea where his brother was and that he had no knowledge of what happened to him. So it would, it said it appeared that the detective was satisfied with John's answer during this interrogation since he was never questioned again after that. The Jeppson family strongly believed that Reed was abducted, and they were certain that he would never have left them voluntarily. However, once again, no evidence of foul play was ever found. So there was supposedly, according to this article, a known child offender, living in the area at the time of Reed's disappearance. It was apparently a doctor who owned the land that connected to the Jeppsons' backyard. So, in reading this again, I forgot about this article. That would make sense. Now, once again, not saying that this man had anything to do with it. So allegedly, this person had a history of essaying his patients, specifically teenage boys. So he was eventually questioned by police. The behavior of the man, whose name was never released to the public, during the interrogation was reportedly troubling. Some found the following excerpt strange. So this man says, I'll tell you one thing, I would appreciate you finding out who killed him. So the officer says, how do you know that Reed was killed instead of running away? Most of the gossip said that Reed was just a runaway. And this man says, well, I know that this length of time, they're never going to find out. So in the police report, it was noted that the man chuckled after saying this. Just kind of creepy, a whole lot creepy. Once again, not saying that this man had anything to do with it. So, however, investigators said that he was not known to be violent. They did clear him of suspicion. So no trace of Reed or his dogs was ever found. In the absence of any evidence, the case was closed in 1966. Once again, it was reopened with the new cold case unit that we talked about earlier. So the Jeppsons were said to be a tight-knit family that was deeply affected by Reed's disappearance. So sadly, tragedy struck the Jeppson family once again when Edward, who was Reed's father, took his own life on December 18th, 1965, which is just over a year after Reed disappeared. So Reed's mother, Elizabeth, as well as several of his siblings, passed away in the years that followed. They never, they passed away without ever having any closure or definitive answer about what happened to Reed. Reed's sister, Suzanne, spent 57 years of her life thinking about what happened to her brother. She described the effect that Reed's loss had on their family. She says, when you have someone missing, the missing person isn't the only victim. The whole family starts to suffer. First there's worrying, then that turns into frustration, and after years and years, despair sets in. So in 2021, his sister said that she was still haunted by the thoughts of Reed. She says, you just keep thinking, what happened to my little brother? What did he go through? So police, once again, reopened Reed's case in 2010 to remind the public that his case was still unsolved. Detective Cody Loogie told reporters that somebody out there in the community knows something about this case. I mean, in my opinion, there's got to be somebody that saw something. I mean, once again, just my opinion. So investigators, like I said earlier, they did take DNA samples from living members of the family. They checked them against a database of unidentified deceased persons. The authorities also released an age progression image, which is the smaller picture on the slide. Its age progressed to, I'll have to go back to the Charlie Project to see what age. I believe it was 40 something. I'll go back and look at it, but that smaller picture is the age progression. So it approximates what Reed might look like today. So in 2012, the police did receive a tip from a couple who found animal bones on their property, which had previously belonged to the doctor, the alleged child offender that we were talking about earlier. It said these bones were dismembered, wrapped in plastic bags. They could only provide pictures of the bones since they had already discarded them. He said, the person who found it said that it looked like two dogs, a large one and a small one, and that they believe the neighbors that lived on the property that the doctor used to live on said they believed that they were Reed's two dogs. Now, we don't know, obviously. So police searched a gully in Salt Lake City with shovels and a backhoe looking for Reed's remains. Nothing was found. Officer Josh Ashdown said regarding the tip, because of the nature of the case, I can't get into that specifically, but enough of a tip that it was worth coming out here with some cadaver dogs and digging. So, of course, Reed's unexplained disappearance, it says, is the oldest unsolved missing persons case on file at the Salt Lake City Police Department. So according to Suzanne, the Jeppson family considered many possibilities to explain Reed's disappearance. An animal attack was proposed, though they wondered how such an incident could have left no trace of Reed or the dogs. I agree. Some members also reportedly believed that that Reed experienced some kind of freak accident, such as falling into a cave in the foothills or the mountain. To me, that would be probably the most plausible if he wasn't snatched, which still, he was a big boy. So that's why I was asking if there was, any, like I said, foothills, ravines, embankments that he could have fallen over and, an accident. But once again, where are the dogs? That's what I come back to. Where are the dogs? So Suzanne presented her own theory, which was considerably more sinister. She said, I told my mother, I believe a child predator got a hold of him. It had to have been a child predator. So though a local child predator was cleared of any involvement, Suzanne thinks her brother's offender did get away. There may never be an answer to the tragic enigma, though Corden Parks, who's a cold case investigator for the department, has not given up, said he would like to interview Reed's school classmates. Authorities in Salt Lake City encourage anyone with information on the case to submit a tip. And meanwhile, there is still a headstone for Reed at the SLC cemetery that is engraved with his name, birth date, and the day he went missing, which was October 11th, 1964. Suzanne, his sister, says, "We just feel like our family has been robbed of a wonderful addition to the family. His chance for life was stolen from him." So I'm glad I found that article, because I was thinking, I read information about this and that theory. Anyway. So yeah, very interesting. So what do you guys think? I mean, to me, the most logical thing would be that he did, once again, except for where the dog's at, that he did, maybe fall, have an accident. They just didn't have it, didn't find his remains. But you would think, once again, that the dogs would have been found. They would have went back home, Hey, Sunday Doodles, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Yep, Junior said it's wild that the dogs are missing too. I know, that's what I keep going back to is what happened to the dogs, regardless of what happened. Because to me, nothing makes sense. If he was snatched, why would the offender would he have he would have had to taken the dogs too? If he Reed had an accident, I mean, the dogs could have stayed. I mean, they could have stayed there with him, but maybe they stay, if he did have an accident, they stayed there with him, which I own cats instead of dogs, but I do know that dogs are very loyal, and a lot of times they will stay with their owner. I mean, and they just didn't, just like Reed's body, they just haven't found, the remains of the dogs either. But, yeah, Miss Paula had wanted to know if was he declared legally deceased. I thought that article might have mentioned that. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that. Arctic said, well, he left all his belongings, including his paper route money. Yeah, to me, because they'd mentioned that once somebody had mentioned that he, ran away to visit a girl in Missouri, that he had met somewhere. To me, that's just, would be very low on my list. Absolutely. Arctic says if he left willingly, he would have taken his money for sure. That's true. That is true. And to me, that scenario would be the only thing that makes sense as far as the missing dogs too. But I don't know. Yes, thank you, Miss PJ. Yes, do all the things. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications. Once again, make sure that you're still subscribed if you want to be subscribed to this channel, because the crazy YouTube gods apparently unsubscribe. Hey, JP, good to see you. Says, surprise, I'm still me. Yes, you're still you. Good to see you, sir. Thank you very much, Miss Doodle. Yep, Arctic said, yep. Reed is the oldest active missing persons case in Salt Lake City files. Yep. Miss Doodle is passing out the tardy cookies. Mustang says in the 60s he may have run away. That's true. Anything is possible. Like I said, this one has got me stumped. Junior says aliens. Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you. That is true. Doodles says he may have known somebody, known the person that possibly abducted him. That is true. So that would explain why, maybe if it was somebody that he knew or that knew him, would have taken the dogs too. What? Me too? What? Hold on. Oh, I got your video back up, Doodle. I needed something to do. I got bored with being lazy. Oh, you got my video up too? Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, this is one that's got me scratching my head. Too many possibilities. Absolutely, always. JP says there's a lot wrong with that. I don't know what you're referring to, but yes. Thank you, Mustang. Really? I'm gonna have to. I usually don't go down the Reddit rabbit holes, but I might have to. Arctic says the Reddit on this case is very interesting. I might have to, because yeah, and when I was searching for stuff, the thing for Reddit did come up. I'll definitely look at it. Because like I said, yeah, I mean, usually I can kind of get my own, for my own theories and opinions, about what would be more likely than not. But on this one, I don't know. I don't know. It could be that he did run away. He did maybe take money with him. There were some discretion on that, or indiscretion on that. Some, account said he did have money with him. Some said he didn't. But I mean, how did he go? Did he get a ride with somebody? Did he have he was 15 years old. Did he have a vehicle? I mean, I don't know. It's just, all those things are good to know when you're trying to form an opinion or a theory about what could have happened. He would have, if he was running away, he would have had to have a way to go somewhere, unless he wasn't, running very far. Oh goodness, Arctic, I hope you're feeling better. He says he's been nursing the migraine. Migraines, I've very few and far between do I get migraines, but I know they are miserable. Hey, Elosa, good to see ya. Um, oh, Night Junior, thank you for being here. Hope I didn't miss him. I'm a little bit behind in comments. Always good to have Junior here. JP says reasonable theory. I know, yeah. Yeah, see, I thought that to me, yeah. Arctic says the pedo doctor is looking like a good suspect to him. I know that. I mean, it said that the property that the doctor lived on, which was the child offender, was like right next door or right behind. It was connected to the Jeppson's backyard. He was apparently a known child offender. Supposedly later, years later, whoever lived in that house after the doctor lived in it supposedly found some bones that they said were dog bones. They thought was a larger dog and a smaller dog, which would match up with Reed had an adult dog and one was a puppy. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely, yeah, that would probably be higher up on my list than running away. I mean, yep, definitely sad. Hey, Dino, good to see you. JP says appearances can be deceiving. This is true. Dino's taking notes, apparently. I can't see the thing, but it says person blue holding pencil. Are you taking notes on the case, Dino? Paula agrees with something. Yeah, JP says knowing the person is usually the case. Yeah, it's like the little I try to listen to, like Mr. Steve and all the professionals who know how to investigate cases, been trained. It's the little things that you need to know. Like, if, for instance, like I said before, if he was going to run away, Did he have a plan? Did he have a vehicle? Did he have a driver's license? He was only 15. Did did he plan on having somebody pick him up, a friend, and they went together? But as far as I know, there was not none of his friends or anybody that they knew, disappeared along with him. Just the dogs. I mean, I don't know how good of a detective I would be, but I try to use my thinking skills. But yeah, it's the little things, little things. The victimology, is very important, or so I've heard. Um, this is true. Arthur says, I mean, he had braces at some point. He would have had to see an orthodontist. Yeah, and I don't know. Did it say? I don't remember in that article. It just said it was the alleged child offender was a doctor. It didn't say what kind of doctor, but that is a good point. Hey, Heather Brown, good to see you, my dear. Good to see the night owls in here. Right, we'll get caught up. Um, yep, he was a very nice looking young man. Absolutely. Right. Hey, Shibi, good to see you. Good to see you. Um, that's what I was wondering about if he had a driver's license. Miss Paula says back in the 60s, was there even an age limit? Yeah, it was. I don't know. I had to look that up. I know that at least when I got my, years and years and years ago, many moons ago, when I got my driver's license, I think you had to be 15 to get your learner's permit, and then 16 you could take your driver's test and get your actual driver's license. Now I don't know back in the 60s. I have no clue. No clue. But that would be good to know. Absolutely. Yeah, he does. Artist says it kind of looks like Wally Cleaver. That is true. That's exactly what I thought of when I saw that picture. I'm like, that looks like Leave It to Beaver. Uh, are you talking about this case? I don't know if you're talking about this one. JP says, I need to go through that case. It gives me bad vibes. Wish they would go digging. Thank you, Miss Heather. Says she was like number 17. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yep, Shibby says Reed looks like a strong farm boy as a youngster. Yeah, that he was a big boy. He was 15, but he was like what, 5 foot? I'm trying to read off my slide here. Hold on, let me take the comment down 1 minute. 5'9", 140 pounds to 150, and he did play. He was like a sophomore in high school. He played football, so yeah, I mean, he was a good sized boy for 15 years old, and he played football. So you would think that he'd be in good shape. So to me, that would kind of make it hard, in my opinion, for somebody to just snatch him off the street, plus the two dogs. So, yeah, I'm either, top of my list, top two would be the doctor, or he, had an accident, fell down a crevice in a cave or whatever, the foothills, and they just haven't found. But once again, I always go back to the dogs. What happened to the dogs? Dino says, how do they get his picture in color? That the smaller picture is an age progression that I think Nick Beck did, so it's in color. That's why the smaller picture is in color. The bigger one is the black and white one is the one when he went missing. Dino says he actually looks like someone I know. Okay. So I think that, let me check to make sure once again. I think that is all that I had on read. So we will go on to, all right. So next is the one that Arctic had mentioned. Oh, hold on to your hats, and I'm gonna put up. Let me find it. The trigger warning for the whole of this one, because it involves very bad things. It involves children. So just be forewarned if you don't think you can. Obviously, we're not going to give graphic details, but once again, children are involved, very bad things. So, if you need to not watch this part, feel free to step away, or if you're watching replay, fast forward. Um, hey, Miss Peggy, good to see you. She's a little bit late, but she made it. That's fine, ma'am. You can always catch up on what you missed on Replay Crew. All right, so this is the one that Arctic mentioned last Monday when I said that we were going to do Utah. And the name sounded familiar at the time when he mentioned it to me, but I kind of forgotten all the details. Maybe I just blocked them out of my mind until I was reading. Oh, this is a bad one. So after, and I may just read, I can't, let me see. Because the Charlie Project information has basically all, in my opinion, the relevant information to form your own opinion of what could have happened. I did have, okay, we'll get to that. All right, so this is Susan Marie Powell. She went missing on December 7th, 2009 from West Valley City, Utah. Get another drink. I'm sorry. She's a white female. She was 28 years old when she went missing, and she'll be 43 years old as of 2025. She is 5'4" tall, 130 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. Her maiden name is Cox, and some agencies refer to her as Susan Cox Powell. She was last seen wearing a long sleeve black shirt and black dress pants. So if you see in the slide there, I've got 3 smaller pictures. So let me try to get this straight. So the top picture should be Josh Powell, I believe, who is her husband. The next picture down, the older gentleman, should be Stephen Powell, who I believe is Josh's father. And then the bottom 2 pictures, the little ones, are Braden Powell and Charlie Powell, who were Susan and 2 of Susan and Josh's children. So they play a big part in this information. So that's why I included their pictures. All right. So a friend of Susan visited her at her residence in the 6200 block of West Sarah Circle in West Valley City, Utah, on the afternoon of Sunday, December 6, 2009. So the friend, Susan, and Susan's husband of 8 years, Josh, had lunch together. According to her friend, she said Susan was behaving normally at the time and only said that she was tired and wanted to take a nap before dinner. So the next day, both Susan and Josh did not show up for work or call their employers to say that they would be absent. They also failed to drop their children off at daycare. Authorities issued a missing persons bulletin for Susan, Josh, and their 2 sons, 2-year-old Charlie and 4-year-old Braden. So that, like I said, the 2 bottom pictures of the young ones are the Charlie and Braden. So Josh and the children returned home at around 5 p.m. Susan has never been heard from again. Josh said that he had taken his sons camping in the desert at Simpson Springs, which is along the Pony Express Trail, late on Sunday night. He said he returned home to find Susan was gone. She was missing. He said that he last saw Susan at their home at around 12:30 a.m. on December 7th, as he was getting ready to go on this camping trip with the 2 boys. in the middle of the winter. So Susan did not go with them because according to Josh, she said she felt sick. She didn't want to go on this camping trip. Josh said that he did not go to work on Monday because he got confused about what day of the week it was. Okay, we'll go with that. So authorities quickly classified Susan's disappearance as suspicious. They executed a search warrant on the home. Her family described Susan as a devoted mother who would not have abandoned her children. She left her purse, keys, cell phone, all behind at home. Investigators stated on the day that Susan was reported missing, they noticed a large wet spot in her home and fans blowing on it to try to dry it. I'm assuming this was on carpeting or maybe concrete, who knows. So they questioned Josh's story, stating they did not know why he would have taken two toddlers, two little young ones, camping in the cold weather. The temperatures during the time of this supposed camping trip were well below freezing, mixed with rain and snow. So yeah, perfect conditions to take two little tots out on a camping trip. Anyway, so police searched the site where Josh said that he had set up camp, but they were unable to determine whether anyone had camped there recently. They said Braden did confirm that the trip had taken place. Now, he just confirmed that a trip had taken place, not necessarily a camping trip. That's just what I'm inferring from that sentence there. So a week after Susan's disappearance, Josh hired an attorney. Authorities named Josh as a person of interest in Susan's disappearance. They stated he had not cooperated with the investigation. The police briefly impounded the family's minivan and searched it. During the day that the van was in police custody, Josh rented a car to drive. Investigators later determined that he had driven this car hundreds of miles before he returned it, but the car did not have any stored GPS data to indicate where it had been driven. So no, I'm not a technical person, so I don't know how easy or hard it would be to say erase or get rid of the stored GPS data. So you guys in chat, or if you're watching on replay, leave me a comment and let me know. Just if it can be done, I'm sure it can be done. So a neighbor said that Josh appeared at his home when it was time to return the rented car and get his van back from the police. So the neighbor stated Josh was acting oddly, his hands were badly wind burned, and he kept putting lotion on them. So in January of 2010, which was a month after Susan's disappearance, Josh packed his family's belongings. He put their house up for rent, and he moved. I can never pronounce this city right. I'm not even going to try. Puyallup, Washington. Puyallup, Washington. So he moved there with the children. Both he and Susan are originally from Washington, and they do have relatives there. So Josh moved in with his father, Stephen Powell, who is the second from the top on the slides. So Josh and Stephen cut off access to the children from all of Susan's family, including her parents, Judy and Chuck. In a media interview in November of 2010, Josh stated that Susan was mentally unstable and he thought she had left of her own accord, possibly to be with another man, and was now afraid to return because of the media attention her disappearance had generated. So Susan's family and Josh's own sister disputed this characterization of Susan, but Stephen, his father, supported Josh's statements. So he and Josh planned to publish on their website excerpts from the diary that Susan kept when she was a teenager, more than a decade before her disappearance, saying that the writings were proof that she was a troubled woman and did not get along with her parents. So what would that have to do with her disappearing all these years later? So luckily, Susan's family got an injunction to stop that publication. Some of Susan's neighbors stated that she had been unhappy in her marriage and had spoken openly of divorce. One of her acquaintances stated that Susan had been saving money for the purpose of filing for divorce. The couple had met in 2000. They'd married in 2001 after 6 months of dating. Susan was 19. Josh was 25 at the time of their wedding. It says they had initially been happy together, but their relationship deteriorated after they moved from Washington State or from Washington to Utah several years before Susan's disappearance. They filed for bankruptcy in 2007 with close to $200,000 in debt. Susan reportedly described Josh as controlling, claimed that they argued frequently. She was active in her local ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the LDS, but Josh had stopped attending church services. So the couple did attend marriage counseling through their church for about 4 months. The counseling ended when Susan disappeared. Josh later claimed that LDS members tried to alienate Susan against him and pressured her to divorce him against her wishes, simply because he was no longer active in the church. So for about 2 months after her disappearance, Susan's family did stand behind Josh, and they said they didn't believe that he would have harmed her. But in February of 2010, a family friend appointed a spokesperson for Susan's family told the media that they had learned that Josh had been emotionally abusing Susan for years, and there was at least one episode of DV as well. So Susan's parents stated that Josh alienated their children against Susan. They limited her access to the family's bank account, even though she was the primary earner. They claimed that Josh did not often allocate Susan enough money to buy food for herself and the children, and she had to start a vegetable garden as a result. Okay, hold on. Got a good drink of water right quick. So Susan had reportedly said she planned to leave Josh on April 6th of 2010, which was the couple's wedding anniversary, if their marriage did not improve before then. So in the aftermath of Susan's disappearance, relations between Josh and her parents became so heated that a judge ordered Josh and Chuck, who is Susan's father, to keep at least 500 feet apart. So there was speculation that Susan's disappearance was connected to the December 2009 disappearance of 30-year-old Stephen Koecher. I think I did include him also. He left his St. George, Utah home on December 12th. He was last seen the next day in Nevada. So because Koecher was about the same age as Susan and disappeared from the same state at approximately the same time, investigators looked into the possibility that their disappearances were linked. In my opinion, they were not, but I bring it up because Josh actually suggested that Josh and this Stephen Koecher had suggested that they had run away together, possibly to Brazil, where Koecher had been before on a mission trip. So, of course, authorities could find no connection between the Susan and Stephen's disappearances, no evidence that the two knew each other whatsoever. So, in September of 2011, Stephen, who is, once again, second from the top, who is Josh's father, was charged with voyeurism and possession of CSAM. So when they searched his Washington home for evidence in Susan's disappearance in August, authorities found more than 1,000 videos of women and younger females, some as young as 8, being filmed without their knowledge in various degrees of undress. So some of the images show the victims taking baths, showering, and using the bathroom. Told you, trigger warning, most definitely. So police said it appeared that Stephen had been making the films for at least a decade. One of the women in the tapes was Susan. Stephen also had pictures of other females with their heads replaced by an image of Susan's face, and photos of Stephen, how do I put this, pleasuring himself to a video of Susan. So in May of 2012, Stephen was convicted of 15 charges relating to the CSAM images. And for all that, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. 2.5 years. Really? That's it? So interestingly, it says Stephen had earlier claimed that Susan was, quote, a very sexual person, quote, end quote, and that she had wanted to have an affair with him. But Susan's family said the opposite was true, and that Susan and Josh had moved to Utah in part to get away from her father-in-law's unwanted advances. So one of Susan's friends said that she told him that Susan had spied on her while she was dressing. I'm assuming he meant Susan had spied on Susan while she was dressing. After she moved to Utah, she told Josh she never wanted to allow Stephen inside their home. So Susan did not want Stephen inside the home at all. Josh admitted that he was aware of his father's fixation on Susan. In her journals, Susan wrote that she thought Stephen was a pedo and a bad influence on Josh. Well, you think? Anyway, so Susan and Josh's children were taken into foster care following Stephen's arrest. Susan's parents sought and obtained temporary custody of them. Josh received supervised visitation twice a week. He rented a new home. He submitted to a psychological evaluation in his bid to regain custody of the children. So the psychologist who evaluated Josh diagnosed him with a narcissistic personality and noted that while he was an affectionate and attentive parent, he repeatedly said inappropriate things to Charlie and Braden about Susan's family in spite of being told not to. And apparently Josh believed that a militant faction of the LDS church wanted to kidnap them. So among other statements, Josh told the boys that, quote, Mormon police had put Stephen in jail on false charges and were trying to do the same to him. He denied any inappropriate interest in CSAM or any other things of that nature, and any knowledge of the images on Stephen's computer, but he admitted that he might not have turned his father into the police if he had known about the CSAM materials. So he said, oh, I might not have turned my father in, even though he had these thousands of pictures. So the police in Utah had found about 400 images of cartoon type drawings with some different themes that I can't say or YouTube will kick me, on Josh's computer in 2009, but the authorities in Washington didn't learn of this until November of 2011 and didn't actually see the pictures until January, I'm assuming January of 2012. So in February of 2012, the judge ordered Josh to undergo a psychosexual evaluation and a polygraph test and said he could not regain custody of his sons until this was done. The next weekend, okay, so get ready for the bigger trigger warning. So the next weekend, during his next visit with Charlie and Braden at his home, Josh let the boys in the house, but locked the supervisor out. He then attacked the children with a hatchet. He set the house on fire, taking his life and his sons, little Charlie and Braden, almost instantly. So he left messages behind for his family and lawyer, apologizing for his actions and saying that he could not live without his children. None of these messages mentioned Susan. Authorities stated that it appeared as if he had been planning this homicide, self-harm for some time, as he had stockpiled gasoline and he had given the boys' belongings away. So Josh had apparently exhibited dysfunctional behavior and violent tendencies since childhood. He attempted self-harm when he was a teenager. He took the lives of his sister's pets. He occasionally hit and pushed his mother, and he once threatened her with a butcher knife. So his parents had a difficult divorce and custody battle. Stephen, who is the father, accused Josh's mother, Tarika, of practicing witchcraft, and Tarika stated that Stephen abused Josh on a regular basis and alienated all of their children against her. So basically the same thing that I said Josh was doing to Susan. So Stephen, Josh's father, got custody of Josh and his two sisters, or his two brothers, while Josh's sister went to live with their mother. Josh and his mother repaired their relationship after he reached adulthood, and she had supported his bid for custody of Braden and Charlie. So in late March of 2012, newly unsealed documents revealed additional evidence that police had that tied Josh to Susan's disappearance. Her blood had been found on the tile floor next to the couch in the family home. Her cell phone was in Josh's car, something that, he couldn't explain how, her phone ended up in his car and she's missing. So when Josh turned Susan's phone over to the police, it was turned off and missing its SIM card, which is, the memory chip that stores information about the device. He later gave his own phone over to authorities, and it too was missing the SIM card. Susan had a $1.5 million in insurance on her life. A short time after her disappearance, Josh began drawing on her retirement account, and he canceled all of her upcoming chiropractic appointments. She left a will in a safe deposit box registered in her name only, along with a handwritten letter addressed to her family and friends saying Josh had threatened to, quote, destroy her, and told her the children, quote, will not have a mother and father if she divorced him. The letter stated that she passed away, quote, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one, end quote. So Charlie told the police that Susan accompanied them on the camping trip the night of her disappearance, but she did not come back with them, and he did not know why. So weeks after his mother's disappearance, after they had moved, Josh took them and moved back to Washington. Charlie told a teacher that his mother was dead. So in February of 2013, less than a week after the 1-year anniversary of the homicide, self-harm, Josh's brother Michael took his own life by jumping off the roof of the parking garage of the apartment building where he lived in Minnesota. It said Michael had been fighting with Susan's parents over the $2 million life insurance that Josh had taken out on himself and his sons. So Josh had designated his brother as the primary beneficiary of the policies, but Susan's parents challenged this, and the insurance refused to pay until the issue was settled in court. So Michael had been an ardent supporter of his father and brother and stated that he believed the police were conspiring to frame them both. So there are now 3 surviving Powell siblings. Besides Josh and Michael, they're deceased. Alina, John, and Jennifer. So after Michael's death, authorities announced that they believe Joshua was involved in Susan's disappearance and that Michael helped him cover it up. Michael sold his car for salvage value at an Oregon junkyard 2 weeks after Susan's disappearance, a fact that investigators did not learn for 2 years, and that Michael never adequately explained why he had done so or how he used the vehicle in the intervening period. So the two brothers communicated using a computer code, which most of which police have been unable to crack. In May of 2013, authorities stated they were closing the investigation into Susan's disappearance. In July of 2018, Stephen, who is Josh's father, passed away of natural causes in a Washington hospital at 68. Susan's family has been very critical of the police investigation, particularly after Josh, Charlie, and Braden's deaths. Susan's parents stated that authorities had more than enough evidence to move forward with charges against Josh, and if they had, they could have prevented his death and the children's homicides. So before her disappearance, Susan worked as a stockbroker for the Wells Fargo Bank. Obviously, foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved. So yeah, and I'm going to take a break for a minute and look at y'all's comments, and then I do have an article. I think it's an interview with, because I remember now after I read this article that I think ID Channel or Oxygen Channel did do an episode about Susan's case. And she had even made a video about Stephen, about Josh's father, that is very creepy. I mean, so anyway, we'll get into it. Like I said, I do have an article. I believe it's her dad reacting to his thoughts about the episode that they did. I believe it's Oxygen Channel. But let me take a break from reading for a minute and read your comments and get caught up. Get me a drink. Get back down to where I was at. Oh goodness, I'm trying to get down to where I was at. I forgot to mark where I was at. That's Miranda? She have a different? Okay. I'm confused, but that's okay. Goodness gracious, hold on. Okay. I remember that comment by JP, so I think I'm down to where I left off at now. Let's see what we got. Hopefully everybody's behaving themselves. I think I said hi to Miss Peggy. If not, hello, Miss Peggy. Mustang says, I've heard this case. It's horrible. Yeah. I said until like I said, when Arctic mentioned it last Monday, the name Susan Powell sounded familiar, but I couldn't remember all the details until, like I said, I think I blocked them out until I started reading about it again. And then I remember when they mentioned that episode, I think Oxygen Channel, I think I saw it on the ID channel, or it may have been when we still had Oxygen Channel. I remember watching that episode that they did, and it was just horrible. Yeah, JP says she's got a genuine smile. Absolutely. She's a beautiful lady. Miss Barb says she remembers this one well. Yep. Yeah, Miss Paula agrees. John Paul's throwing, or JP's throwing his red flags up. Yeah, flag number 1. There's lots of flags in this one, I'm telling you. Big red honking flags. So JP said that's kind of normal. I know fathers that take their kids camping year round. I know, but too, I mean, as young as they were, but once again, obviously I know, I'm not doubting your word, absolutely. But in this case, I don't think, I think I have my own opinion. Once again, take this information, form your own opinion about what you think happened or didn't happen. But I formed my opinion on what I believe, what I think happened. Yep, Artist said this case has more flags than an NASCAR race. Absolutely, sir. Paula wanted to know if the alleged camping trip was in a state park. Oh, I can't remember where it was at. Hold on. It was hold on, let me find it. There's so much information. All that information was all came from the Trolley Project. It was just all there right in, one place. I didn't have to go looking for every little detail. Let me see. Let's see. Was it some campground or something? Hold on, I'll find it. I'm not sure if it was at the state, or it might not have said. Hold on. So Josh said he had taken his sons camping in the desert at Simpson Springs along the Pony Express Trail. Now, I don't know if that's in the state park or not, but it was in the desert at Simpson Springs along the Pony Express Trail. That's supposedly where they went camping at. Yeah, it's not, yeah. He rented a vehicle, which, he would have had, they had the van for a day. I'm assuming they didn't have any other vehicles. I don't know. I don't know. They may have had more than one vehicle, but yeah, he rented a vehicle. It had hundreds of miles had been put on it in that one day. But the GPS was not there. It was gone. So it can be erased or whatever by the black box inside. This is true. Arctic says even without vehicle data, they should have been able to follow the pings of his cell phone. Absolutely. Absolutely. Artist says Stephen Powell, which is the father, Josh's father, is a circus freak show himself. Yeah, I'm telling you, I wish I could. When I read that article, it'll tell what whoever did that episode on this case, and if you can find it anywhere, I will try to look and see if I can find it and put a link to it. It's the video that she made, because she did make a video basically stating what the letter stated, that she talking about Stephen, Josh's father, and all that mess, and that he had been, was everything with her, and then if she disappeared or passed away, it wouldn't be an accident. It's just very, very eerie. Yep. He and the kid, he took the boys inside, and he locked the CPS worker out and did what he did. Yep, exactly. JP says people get holy when it's convenient. I agree. Arctic says Stephen's case is another crisis case. Yes, I believe it may be the one after this. No, I know. Yep. I did include. This may turn into a 3. Oh, it's already 2.5 hours. Good Lord. Yeah, I did include Stephen's case because the details of his case are very strange also. So let me hurry up and get through these comments. Yes, I love that song you did, or whoever did it. You did it for me. I just got to figure out. I downloaded the MP3 that you sent me, but I've not been able to open it because I'm going to use it for my intros. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to read that out loud. I'm just going to let that sit there. Oh, good Lord. Talking about Stephen, the father, Josh's father. Oh my goodness. He is, ugh. I'm going to throw up. Just getting caught up. I'm going to read that quickly. What, like I said, what I think it's Susan's father had to say about the episode they did. Just getting caught up. Yep. Paula says either the father, Stephen, or Josh could have. Yep, absolutely. Or it could have been. Well, they said authorities think that, Josh did it and that Michael helped him cover it up and dispose of her body, which Michael was one of his brothers who ended up taking his life by jumping off something because he was fighting with Susan's parents for the $2 million life insurance policy that was on Josh and the two boys. So it could have been a combination of the three or all three. You're welcome, Mustang. Yeah, Miss Barb says, if I remember correctly, one of the kids says something about his mom in the vehicle. Yeah. Yeah, it said one of them, I can't remember if it was Charlie or Braden's. One of whoever said it, maybe Charlie said that one of Charlie's teachers said that when he went to school, he said that his mom was dead. Yes, Heather, very, very twisted. Hey, Miss Louise, good to see you. I'm just reading what you're saying about the GPS data. Me, in my opinion, somebody had to have erased it, got rid of it. Okay, Arctic says, I think it was Josh and that he attempted to burn her body, which is why he had burns on his hands. I think the brother likely was an accomplice. I agree. I agree with you 100%. Okay, I think I am caught up. So let me find I don't think the article is very long. Where is it at? Okay, so hopefully it won't take it long for it to come up. So this is from foxnews.com. It is from May of 2019. Susan Powell's father speaks out in documentary on missing mom's case. Quote, I thought she was being isolated. So Chuck Cox, who is Susan's dad, is hoping that his daughter's story will encourage other women to leave their abusive spouses for good. The heartbroken patriarch is participating in a 2-night docu-series on Oxygen titled, sorry, ads popped up, titled The Disappearance of Susan Cox Powell, which explores the devastating final years of the 28-year-old Utah mother when she vanished from her home in 2009. It features shocking, never before seen videos and rare interviews with family members and footage of her two young boys who died in a fire started by their own dad. So Susan's dad says, I must have received about 100 calls from people saying, because of Susan, we got our daughter out of this situation. These women are in uncomfortable situations and they think maybe they should leave, but then they feel things are going to get better. And they believe their abuser. They'll start divorce proceedings and go, I don't want to be mean to him. So they start and they stop. It's like a vicious cycle. So if you're going to leave, you have to make up your mind and leave. So Susan was last seen at her West Valley City home on December 6, 2009. Once again, we went through all that. You know, Josh said he took 4-year-old Charlie, 2-year-old Braden on the camping trip in the West Desert, despite a snowstorm that same night. Josh claimed that he left Susan at home. He said that she was sick and didn't want to go. While investigators suspected Josh of being behind Susan's disappearance, there was no evidence to pin him down. According to the publication, the couple met at a Mormon singles ward in Puyallup, I can't pronounce that, somewhere in Washington. So Susan, who yearned to have a family of her own, married Josh at 19 in 2001. Her dad says when they announced that they were getting married, it just didn't feel very good to us. At the reception, I remember he and his father were talking and said something like, quote, she's not a doctor or a lawyer, but she'll do, end quote. She was just an asset. She wasn't seen as the love of Josh's life. It was like he was out shopping for somebody. It didn't feel like love. Cox said after the couple tied the knot, Josh did not allow his wife to have a phone or access to computers. Susan's younger sister, Mary, had also suspected that her sister was being abused. Her dad says, I thought she was being isolated, so I bought her a phone. I told her if she had to get out, take the phone and get out. We would find a way to get the kids. We had several discussions about going to a neighbor or a safe area and then getting in touch so we can deal with things. I did not trust Josh, but she had to make that decision. So Cox said that the summer before she went missing, Susan was making plans to leave her marriage. He says she had spent all these years supporting Josh, taking care of him, and doing everything she possibly could to try to make the marriage work. Josh was just not willing to do anything to be supportive of them together, but she was just hanging on like maybe he'll change. They're not going to change. So the Salt Lake Tribune reported Susan told friends in dozens of emails that Josh was growing increasingly moody and controlling, causing her to believe that he could harm her, as she feared so much for her life or her children being kidnapped by Josh that she wrote about leaving a makeshift will in her desk at work. The documentary shared that in 2008, Susan shot a video saying, if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented. It also revealed that she felt uncomfortable around her father-in-law, Stephen, who developed an obsession over her. Hold on. Let me get one drink. So that was, they included, if it's the same one that I watched, they did include at least a clip of that video. Sorry, ads are popping up again. So Stephen, once again, made hundreds of hours worth of homemade videos, frequently taken without her knowledge, documenting his infatuation with her. At one point, he secretly filmed Susan at public parking lots through the window of his van and would focus the camera lens on her nether regions while narrating his desires. One time in the video, he said, God, I worship her. She just turns me on. I'm in a perpetual state of turned on when she is around. Oh, my God. So Susan's father said he last spoke to his daughter just days before she vanished. He recalled, I talked to her on a Friday or Saturday. She went missing on Sunday night. I learned about it Monday morning. Our phone calls were always the same to some degree. My first question would always be, how are things with Josh? Because I knew they were having issues. She said they were better. Better to her meant that Josh had said that he would be coming to church with her. Excuse me, and he wasn't as confrontational with her as he had been in the past. In other words, he was putting on a show. It was all an act. So while being investigated by police, Josh proclaimed his innocence and insisted that she ran off. Cox said his daughter would have never left behind her two sons to whom she was devoted. Police also found no evidence that Stephen might have been involved. In 2011, Stephen went on television and read Susan's journals, trying to show how emotionally unstable that she was. He is a POS. Anyway, so Susan's dad was outraged that his daughter's privacy was violated publicly. He also believed that she was never capable of walking out on her children. He says she was encouraged to have journals through our church. The intent was that you can document for future generations that you went through trials in your life and what you did to overcome them. The journal is meant to pass on to your future generations. But when you're 12 or 14 or 16, it becomes like a diary. Josh had those journals and he gave them to his dad. Then they decided they were going to use these writings of a teenager to say that this is the kind of person that Susan was as an adult. I didn't think they had the right to read them. When I read the things they claimed were so terrible, it wasn't anything harmful. So the Salt Lake City Tribune shared that West Valley City Police obtained a search warrant to seize those journals as evidence. During the search, they discovered Stephen had photographed neighbor girls as young as 8 through a bathroom window. He was charged with counts of voyeurism and CSAM because Josh and his sons had moved in with Stephen after Susan's disappearance. Washington's Child Welfare Agency removed the boys from the home, excuse me, and eventually placed them in the custody of his maternal grandparents. And a state judge allowed Josh to have supervised visits. It was during one of those visits, we already went through that when he did the things. So we went through a year later in 2016. Josh's brother Michael, who was suspected by some of participating in Susan's disappearance, took his own life. Steve, the dad, considered to be the last, most likely person to know what happened. Once again, he passed away in 2018 from a heart attack. Susan's father admitted that chances are he may never find out what really happened to his daughter. He says, assuming she's gone, I don't think anybody knows the story well enough or knows what really happened. I think all of those people are gone, but we may find where the body was put to rest, I suppose, or her bones. I don't think we'll know beyond what we already know. I just don't think I'm going to know any more until we find her remains, unless she is captured somewhere and manages to show up somehow. Still, Susan's father hopes that Susan's story will continue to inspire other women to get out of menacing situations. He says Josh never treated her like how a wife or loved one should be treated, and that was at the beginning of the relationship, the time where everyone is on their best behavior. If you're not going to be treated right in the beginning, and then how do you think it's going to get after the novelty is worn off and the honeymoon is over? If something doesn't feel right, there's probably a good reason for that. So, just horrible, horrible case. Anyway, so it was a 2-night docuseries it was on Oxygen. So I'm trying to think if Oxygen has an app or if it's a streaming service that you have to pay for. I'll have to look that up, and if I find it, I will put it on my community tab here on YouTube. Let me call that right quick, and then we'll move on. Okay, I think I was down to where I was at. Here we go. JP says, need to see their body language in the interrogation video if one exists. No, well, there's no interrogation to Josh because he, took himself out and with his sons. I don't know about if they ever had any interviews, police interviews with Stephen. Well, I'm guessing they did since they found all the CSAM and all that horrible stuff that they found. Louise says she's unfamiliar with this case. It's a horrible, horrible case. Hey, Dee Dee, good to see you, ma'am. Just getting caught up, and then we'll move on. Lordy, we've been here almost 3 hours. We're good. We're okay. Wait, did I miss somebody? Oh, hello, Nicole Watt. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. It's a new name for me. Or if you've been here before, and I just don't remember, I apologize. All right. Nope, they do not change. You are correct, Miss Barbara. Abusers do not change. Thank you very much. There is Doodlebug put in Dee Dee's channel link. JP, remind me, and I'll give you a wrench next time. Or I'm going to hopefully be able to do a True Crime After Dark Friday, and I will give you a wrench. Don't let me forget. I thought you had one, but you had so many dang different channel names. Yeah, Doodle says, raise your hand if you have a channel. She'll drop the link. Yes, I would have had to be on Replay Crew for that. Most definitely. I saw that she was going to do a live. Yep, apparently so, DD. Apparently he jumped off a parking garage or something. He was supposedly, or they said he was, he was trying to get the $2 million life insurance policy of that had been taken out on Josh and the two boys, and Susan's parents were fighting him for it, and I think the judge put an injunction on it and didn't give it to the brother. And then shortly after is when he took the header off the. I don't mean to be crass, but he jumped off. I think it was a parking garage. Welcome, Carol. Good to have you here. Good to see you. Just don't want to miss anybody. I swear we're going to be here for 4 hours. Welcome, Cumbersome 55. It's a new name, but good to have you here. Thank you very much. Do check out Arctic and Doodle and everybody else. And Mustang. Okay, I'm just going to mark right there because we got to get to moving on here. I'll get caught up again. So next, let me take the banner down now. But just trigger warning on everything, but just I put that up because especially for that case. So next we have Debra Lee Frost. Should have already had her information. Excuse me. So Debra has been missing since July 9th, 1984 from Salt Lake City, Utah. This is classified as a non-family abduction. She's a white female. She was just 17 years old when she went missing. She'll be 58 years old as of 2025. When she went missing, she was 5'4" to 5'6" and 120 pounds with sandy brown hair and hazel eyes. She has a burn scar on her left calf, a scar on the bridge of her nose, a scar on her chest. She has freckles. Her ears are pierced. Her nickname is Debbie. Her hair was cut short on the sides, but waist length in the back at the time of her disappearance. She was last seen wearing a dark blue or black tube top with a white fishnet overlay, long blue corduroy pants, size 6.5 blue sneakers, and earrings. So Debra disappeared at approximately 10 p.m. in her hometown of Salt Lake City on July 9th, 1984. She was at the Mountain Bell Plaza, which was her boyfriend's place of work at the time. She told her boyfriend that she planned to either walk or hitchhike home to the 1100 block of Montgomery Street. It is not known if she did get a ride or she began walking. It says she was a habitual hitchhiker in 1984. And back, people wouldn't dare hitchhike or pick up a hitchhiker these days. But back in, 70s, 80s, it was common to hitchhike still. It says that she had run away from home before, but she had always gone to stay at a friend's house. None of her friends saw or heard from her after her disappearance on July 9th. At the time of her disappearance, she was living with her boyfriend and his family. She was happy with her boyfriend, and she was planning a surprise birthday party for him. The following day, she was supposed to have traveled to California to stay with relatives in order to get away from unspecified problems in her life. It says that she was at least an occasional substance user, though it's not clear how seriously she was involved with illegal substances. So in 2011, authorities learned that Debra had contact with police in Rock Springs, Wyoming on July 21st, which is 12 days after she disappeared from Utah. The nature of this contact is not known, however, since the police records have been purged. Rock Springs is about 200 miles from Salt Lake City. So Fred Martinez is a man Debra had known for about a year, did travel between the two cities. He was 30 years old in 1984. And according to a mutual friend, he had a romantic interest in Debra, but she was not interested in him. So their friend stated that Martinez and Debra got into a fight after they went to Rock Springs, and Debra left, planning to go back to Salt Lake City. And Martinez realized that she was gone within about 10 minutes and left to go after her. So I don't know when this incident happened, how close it was to when she disappeared. So the smaller photo that's on the slide is Martinez, Mr. Martinez, Fred Martinez. So his and Debra's friends said that he could, quote, be very scary, and that he had once told the friend that he took the life of Debra. He then said that this was a joke. He was just joking about it. So he did take his own life in 1995. Investigators have not named him as a suspect in Debra's disappearance, but he is considered a person of interest. Debra's father passed away in 2005 at the age of 58. The rest of her family continues to search for her, and her case remains unsolved. So if you have any information, you can call the Salt Lake City Police Department at 801-799-3734. Let's see what I had. So this is an article from July of 2009. Information sought in case of woman missing for 25 years at that time. So 25 years after a young woman disappeared from downtown Salt Lake City, law enforcement officers are asking the public for new information. Debra Frost, then 17, was last seen at Mountain Bell Plaza at 10 p.m. on July 9th, 1984. She planned to hitchhike or walk to Montgomery Street, but she never arrived. Today, her childhood friend, Venus Pearson, says that she thinks about Frost or Debra all the time. She says it was really sad to not have any information about her. We were like sisters. At the time of Debra's disappearance, police distributed 1,100 missing persons flyers, but nothing came of them. A year later, detectives told newspapers they believe that Debra may have been the victim of a serial offender passing through town, but her body was never found. Salt Lake Police Sergeant Robin Snyder said it's a weird case in that nobody knows what happened to her. Leads have gone cold since then. It's like she disappeared off the face of the earth. Snyder says that the technology that law enforcement has today would have likely helped in Debra's case. She said, 25 years ago, we didn't have highway signs with descriptions of suspect vehicles or descriptions of victims. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. Now people are able to receive text messages on their phones if there's an Amber Alert. Pearson knows the information is not a lot to go on, but after 25 years of worrying, she hopes it's enough. She says, if anybody knows any information, just say, you don't need to worry any longer. She's alive. She's fine. Or even if she is deceased, if somebody knew that, just say she's passed away and you don't need to worry about it anymore. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but so once again, if you have any information about the case, you're asked to contact, you can contact NCMEC at 1-800-THE-LOST, which is 1-800-843-5678, or the Salt Lake City Police Department at 801-799-3000. So I don't know. It's either, I don't know. I forgot about they mentioned that possibly it could have been a serial offender. But I would have looked into Mr. Martinez, most definitely. All right, let me check comments really quickly. You're still talking about the Susan's case. I know that one is just okay. There's where I left off. Yeah, Arctic said the Powell family. I had more nuts than a can of Planters. Absolutely. Oh, good Lord. You are lively tonight. All right. So mark there. I think we just got a couple of more. So this is Annette A. Hill. So this one is one that they just, in my opinion, from the evidence they found, pretty much know what happened to her, but her remains have never been found. Now my computer wants to be slow and not load anything. Oh, come on. All right, so Annette has been missing since May 12th, 1989 from Sandy, Utah. She's a white female. She was just 38 years old when she went missing, and she'll be 74 years old as of 2025. At the time she went missing, she was 5'4" to 5'5" and 110 pounds, with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes. Her hair has red highlights. She may use the last name Cundiff. She has pierced ears and freckles. She was quick-tempered. She was a compulsive nail biter in 1989. She was last seen wearing a black jumpsuit, black shoes, a peach-colored ring, and a gold-colored watch. It says that she may have had self-harm ideas at the time of her disappearance. So Annette was last seen in Sandy, Utah on May 12, 1989. She left her apartment near 82nd South and 1220 East, telling her young child that she would be back in less than an hour. She never returned and has never been heard from again. She took her wallet with her when she disappeared, but she left behind her vehicle. So Thomas Evan Trujillo, I believe that's who is on the smaller picture on the slide, also known as Thomas Knopfsinger, is considered a possible suspect in Annette's case. He and a co-defendant, Grant David Stensrud, were charged with taking the life of a man during a burglary in March of 1990. After their arrest, one of Annette's prescription drug bottles was found in Trujillo's apartment. Her bloodstained purse was located in another apartment that he rented, as was a woman's nightgown, underwear, and jewelry. So Trujillo and Stensrud, who have prior criminal records, pleaded guilty to the 1990 homicide. Trujillo is currently serving life in prison. He has never been charged in connection with Annette's case, but I mean, how he had no explanation, from what I understand, what I've read, of how her bloody purse ended up in a house or apartment that he rented. I think he claimed that he had stolen it or found it somewhere. Anyway, so he is currently serving life in prison, never been charged in connection to Annette's case. He maintains his innocence in Annette's disappearance. He stated he did not know her and that he stole her purse from a car that he burglarized, which, I mean, maybe, possibly. So Annette's loved ones did obtain a death certificate for her in 1991. She was employed as a social worker with the state at the time of her disappearance. Authorities stated they believed that she had been the victim of a homicide, but her remains have never been located, and her case remains unsolved. So if you have any information, you can call the Sandy Police Department at 801-568-7200. So I did have an article, once again, if it'll come up. Oh, so this was just about, I'm not going to read all this, about Trujillo, or Knopfsinger was his real name. He was the chief suspect in her disappearance. When he was sentenced, I guess they asked him about it, or, he always, denied that he had anything to do with it. So I'm not going to read all that, but once again, form your own opinions. All right. Oh, hold on. Let me go back over here to the right tab. All right. All right, so I believe this is the last one. This is, once again, the one that's Arctic mentioned. This is the one that authorities supposedly looked at in connection with Susan Powell's disappearance. And then, Josh made, he even said, oh, yeah, they ran off together to Brazil, or whatever his thing was. But this is Stephen Koecher, or Koecher. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. He's been missing since December 12th, 2009 from St. George, Utah. He's a white male. He was 30 years old at the time he went missing, who would be 45 years old as of 2025. At the time he went missing, he was 5'10" to 5'11" and 180 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. He does have a surgical scar behind each ear and a series of birthmarks on his abdomen, forming a shape similar to a Nike swoosh. That's an interesting birthmark. He was last seen wearing a hooded sweatshirt, a white dress shirt, blue jeans or Dockers pants, and white sneakers. So this one's very, very strange. Lots of weird, I don't know, red flags, weird flags. So Stephen was last seen leaving his residence in St. George, Utah on December 12th, 2009. The following day, he spoke to two friends on his cell phone and said that he was in Las Vegas, Nevada. He offered to turn around to cover a church meeting for one of his friends, but his friends, said not to bother. After that, he has never been heard from again. So on December 14th, Stephen's white 2003 Chevy Cavalier was found abandoned in a cul-de-sac in the 2600 block of Savannah Springs Avenue, which is an upscale residential neighborhood of Henderson, Nevada. And Henderson, Nevada is just basically like a suburb of Las Vegas. I've actually been to Henderson when we went to Las Vegas. So a video surveillance camera in the area showed him parking the car and leaving it there on December 13th. He walked down the sidewalk, crossed the street, and walked out of the frame of the camera. He was alone. He did not appear to be disoriented. It appeared as if he did have a destination in mind and had parked in that location for a specific reason or for a reason. So his shaving kit, coats, pillows, and blankets were inside the vehicle, as well as Christmas gifts that he had purchased a few days before. But his cell phone, wallet, and driver's license were missing. His laptop computer and cell phone charger were left behind at home. His car had half a tank of gas when he left it. So almost 5 hours after Stephen left his car, his cell phone signal was picked up at a tower several miles away near Arroyo Grande Boulevard and American Pacific Drive. 2 hours after that, the signal was picked up in a subdivision near Sunset Drive and Stephanie Street. So early the next morning, someone did check his voicemail, and the signal was picked up at US 95 and Russell Road. So they don't know, obviously, if it was Stephen checking his voicemail or somebody who had his phone. So the phone stayed at that location for 2 days before the signal was lost. So it is unclear why Stephen traveled to Nevada. He is originally from Amarillo, Texas. He graduated from Amarillo High School in 1998, and then he went on to graduate from the University of Utah. He had been living in Salt Lake City and working for the online division of the Salt Lake Tribune, but he quit his job and moved to St. George in April of 2009. His family stated that he was having trouble finding a job. He had recently worked for a window washing business, and he may have gone to Las Vegas to seek employment. It says that Stephen is a devout Mormon. He did not drink or use illegal substances as per his religious beliefs. So once again, there was speculation that Stephen's disappearance was connected to Susan Powell. Once again, because they were both about the same age, disappeared from the same state at approximately the same time, but investigators looked into the possibility that their disappearances were linked. They found no connection to them whatsoever, that they knew each other, anything of that nature. So Stephen's parents stated there is no indication that he took his own life or planned to walk out of his life, but authorities cannot find any evidence of foul play either. He was having financial problems at the time of his disappearance due to his unemployment, but his loved ones don't know what could have caused him to vanish. So his father passed away in February of 2011. They said it was sudden, but it was apparently of natural causes. Both Utah and Nevada police are investigating Stephen's disappearance, which remains unsolved. So if you have any information, you can call the St. George Police Department at 435-627-4319 or the Las Vegas Metro PD at 702-229-2907. Let me see what I had. Wikipedia actually did have an entry on him, so apparently this did get some attention. Let's see if it had anything else. Additionally, that the Charlie Project did not have. Okay, so just to give a little indication of distance, on December 10th, Stephen apparently left St. George in the early morning hours, drove his Chevy Cavalier 300 miles north on Interstate 15 to Salt Lake City, where he bought some gas with a debit card. He then traveled west on Interstate 80, another 125 miles to West Wendover, Nevada, where he again pulled off the highway to refuel. After that, he continued another 100 miles to the Ruby Valley Ranch of the Neff family. So apparently, Stephen had previously dated Anne Marie Neff and visited the ranch. He told her parents, who had not been expecting him, that he thought he would stop by to see her. She was not there. He did eat lunch with her parents. He told them that he was on his way to visit family in Sacramento, California. It was not certain whether he could continue in that direction due to bad weather. After 2 hours, he left and decided to return to St. George the way that he had come, stopping to buy gas again in Salt Lake City and Springville, followed by dinner at Taco Time and Neffy. By the time he returned home, he had driven nearly 1,100 miles. So, I mean, what kind of, I don't know, what kind of bad weather was he expecting, you know? So during the day, Stephen did talk with his mother on the phone. They discussed his plans for returning to the family's home in Bountiful for Christmas. His mother said he seemed upbeat about the upcoming holiday and his job prospects despite his financial difficulties. He did not tell her of his road trip that day. So the next day, while handing out flyers for his employer, Stephen encountered two young girls who had inadvertently been locked out of their family's apartment. When he learned of this, he tried to call their mother. When she did not answer, he looked for someone in the neighborhood who could take them in temporarily until someone arrived who could let them in. That same day, he spoke with his ward's bishop, who also described Stephen's mood as positive. The bishop was also trying to help Stephen with his employment issues and had promised that he would have a job available by the beginning of 2010. So in 2012 is when he started out on this road trip. Once again, that morning, his phone pinged a cell tower near Overton, Nevada at the north end of Lake Mead. In the evening, he bought gas and snacks at a convenience store in Mesquite along I-15, which is just over the Arizona state line. Why Stephen went to Nevada that day is unknown. 3 hours after his Mesquite purchase, he purchased a baby's bib and cookies. These are believed to be Christmas gifts for his brother and his family, whose names he had drawn in the family's annual Christmas gift exchange. So a neighbor of Stephen's recalled seeing him return to his apartment around 10 p.m. A half hour later, he left again. While he was not seen to return later that night, it is possible that he could have. The next morning, on December 13th, Webb, I don't know who that is, called Stephen, saying he was on his way back from Las Vegas and feared he might not make it to St. George in time for the 11 a.m. service. Or that might have been the bishop. So he asked Stephen if he could lead the service in his absence. Stephen said he too was in the Las Vegas area, 150 miles away, but would return home if needed. Webb told him not to worry and that he would try to get back in time. Another member called again later that morning with a similar request, which they dropped when Stephen told them where he was. Neither he nor Webb asked Stephen why he had gone to Las Vegas that morning. They found nothing unusual about their conversation with him. So at 11:54 a.m., a home security camera on Savannah Springs Avenue in Sun City, which is a retirement community in the Anthem development in southern Henderson, recorded Stephen's car driving into the cul-de-sac where it was later found. 6 minutes later, a figure dressed in a white shirt and slacks, believed by his family to be Stephen, walked the opposite direction down the sidewalk in front, excuse me, carrying something in one hand that appeared to be a file folder or a portfolio. Shortly afterwards, another security camera in a garage on adjacent Evening Lights Street caught his reflection as he walked north, and after that, he has not been seen since. So once again, his phone did remain active around 5 p.m. It pinged a tower at the intersection of Arroyo Grande Boulevard and American Pacific Drive, more than 10 miles. So here's the distances, more than 10 miles northeast of where he had parked. So that was 10 miles. The first ping was 10 miles away from where he left the car and was seen walking away. 2 hours after that, it pinged another tower near Henderson's Whitney Ranch subdivision, which is 2 miles north of the previous ping. So now we're up to 12 miles. And early the next morning, the phone pinged a tower at the interchange between Interstate 515, US Route 93, and Russell Road. 2 more miles to the north. So that's 14 miles. So Stephen's landlord sent a text, and then an hour later, the phone was used to check Stephen's voicemail. The phone remained in that tower's vicinity for the next 2 days, suggesting that its battery died, and after that, there was no activity. So 14 miles away from where he left his car and was seen walking away, that's where his phone last pinged. So a day after that last ping, Sun City's homeowners association took note of the car at the end of the Savannah Springs cul-de-sac, tried to find its owner. Through the windows, I saw one of Stephen's flyers. One of the flyers that Stephen had been distributing for the window washing company in St. George. They called the number on it. Eventually, they spoke with the owner, who gave them Stephen's cell phone number, where they left a voicemail. I wonder if that was the voicemail that was checked, that somebody checked, whether it was Stephen or somebody else. Interesting. Later, they called his mother. She returned their call on December 17th, and realizing that no one else in the family had talked to him in a week and were unable to locate him, she reported him missing. His brother and sister drove to St. George from the Salt Lake City area to start searching. So interesting. I wonder if the voicemail that whoever called this phone about the car, if that was the voicemail that was checked. So Stephen's family went to jails, morgues, and hospitals in the Las Vegas area in their search. At one point, when employees at an International House of Pancakes told them that a man fitting Stephen's description had eaten there for 3 weeks straight, they themselves ate there for 4 nights. Another employee eventually gave them a more detailed description of the man and his eating habits, which led the family to conclude it was not Stephen. The Las Vegas Metro PD canvassed the houses in the neighborhood where Stephen's car had been parked. With the help of volunteers, they used helicopters, ATVs, and sniffer dogs. By Christmas, the media in Salt Lake City and Las Vegas had begun reporting the story. A local dairy put Stephen's picture on a milk carton. I didn't even know they still did that. Well, and wait, it was back in what? When did he disappear? Oh, 2009. Well, I didn't know they were still doing that in 2009. Anyway, so the local dairy put his picture on a milk carton, and the Las Vegas Metro PD put a video with information on the case on its YouTube channel. In April of 2010, another party of searchers scoured the open desert south of the Henderson Executive Airport to the west of where Stephen had parked in response to a tip passed along to a former Las Vegas Metro PD officer working as a private investigator for the family. A group of 70 covered about a half-mile stretch in 2 hours. Bone fragments were found, but they were not human. Stephen's father passed away in February 2011 after a brief illness. I might have watched that. So his father and his father's wife and family had recently finished filming an episode of the ID Investigation Discovery cable channel's documentary series Disappeared. I watch episodes of that all the time about Stephen's case. It aired 2 months later. A cousin of Stephen started a Facebook page. It generated some tips. Members of Web Sleuth's internet forum took up the case. In 2015, a local search and rescue group organized another effort, this time going high up the hills south of Anthem on a different theory of what Stephen might have been doing. They did not find anything. So as far as theories about what happened, his dad says, we've considered every possibility, but each possibility, has a contradiction. Is it plausible that someone is walking down the street and then suddenly they vanished? All clues are consistent with that, but that's not possible. So Stephen's family believes, given his financial circumstances at the time, that he went to Henderson that morning for a job opportunity. Despite the odd location where he parked his car, on the security video, Stephen is neatly dressed and walking purposefully, which his family believes was an indication that he was at the scene intentionally. His brother said in 2018, quote, he doesn't look confused or dazed. Beyond that, however, there is no evidence to suggest what happened afterwards, nor has any information emerged subsequently which could. St. George police detectives in charge of the case said in 2018, quote, we know about as much now as we did the second we realized he was gone. So Stephen's financial difficulties notwithstanding, his family does not believe he chose to voluntarily disappear or take his own life. Well, a lot of times, unfortunately, obviously you never want to believe that one of your loved ones would take their own life, but so his mother said that in her last conversation with him on December 10th, he was optimistic about his ability to find another job, and the two were making plans for his Christmas visit home. So his car and its contents also suggest that he intended to return to St. George. His father said that the car was in working order and the gas tank was half full when he found it on December 17th. After his wife was contacted by the Sun City Homeowners Association, in the car were the Christmas presents Stephen had bought for his brother and his family at Kmart the previous day, as well as job applications and the flyers from his employer that had helped the Homeowners Association find his parents. At Stephen's apartment, his clothing and possessions remained where he stored them and had not been disturbed or packed. So Stephen's unusual and mostly unexplained travel in the days leading up to his disappearance has led to suppositions that he may have turned to some sort of illicit activity for income. A drug dog was taken to sniff over his car but did not alert on anything. Another vehicle seen on the security camera footage driving up and down the street around the time that Stephen parked and walked away from his car was investigated. It turned out to be a local real estate agent showing a house in the area. Checks of Stephen's financial history and phone records turned up nothing unusual aside from the trips. A single charge to his credit card since the disappearance was just an automatic charge made to a web hosting company. One unknown phone number turned out to be the family of the two girls that Stephen had been helping on the day before he went to Las Vegas. Those the two girls that were locked out of the apartment. A search of his computer and internet browsing history found nothing unusual. Investigators also checked his borrowing history at the St. George Library, found nothing unusual there. He kept a diary, but recorded no problems in his life at the time of his disappearance, beyond his monetary issues and his ongoing bachelorhood. It says the family does not consider Stephen's travel to be particularly unusual either. One of his reasons for moving to St. George was to research family history in that area. He often went on tours of cemeteries looking for ancestors' graves. Stephen's mother believes the trips were just his way of keeping himself busy despite his unemployment. While there is no evidence that would suggest Stephen was the victim of a homicide or kidnapped, neither the St. George nor Henderson police have found any evidence to eliminate that possibility. Detective Adam Olmsted of the St. George police said there's nothing that makes us suspicious, but at the same time, it is a strange situation. Absolutely. Yeah, Arctic was right when he said that this one was a strange one too. Let's see if I had anything. So I did have one. The last person known to have spoken to Stephen said that it was very odd, according to him. This article is from December of 2022 from 8 News Now. Last known person to see Stephen Koecher alive in Las Vegas area neighborhood details odd conversation moments before he vanished. So the person believed to be among the last to see Stephen alive said about their conversation with the missing man, he says, I can't forget that. Koecher Stephen was living in St. George, Utah at the time of his 2009 disappearance. 2013, the surveillance camera captured Stephen driving into an Anthem retirement community. Minutes later, Stephen walks past several houses before moving out of view. The timestamp on the video puts Stephen driving down Savannah Springs Avenue at 11:54 a.m. And at the strike of noon, one camera catches Stephen walking eastbound on Savannah Springs before turning onto Evening Light Street. So between 11:54 a.m. and noon, Stephen spoke to the neighbor who, for the first time, is publicly speaking about that conversation. The neighbor requested the 8 News Now investigation conceal their identity, as suspects in Stephen's disappearance and presumed death have not been identified nor arrested. So the neighbor remembers Stephen saying, I need money, to them after they opened the door. So apparently he went to another house, and this neighbor that's given the story overheard. So as the 8 News Now investigation reported last month, Stephen was 3 months or $1,500 behind in rent at the time of his disappearance. Money from his family meant to help pay the rent went undeposited, records showed. So I wonder what happened to that money. In the days before his disappearance, financial statements put Stephen in St. George, then Washington, Utah, then Mesquite, Overton, and finally Las Vegas. So we went through all the disappearance. The neighbor says, I did not see him coming out from the car in those 6 minutes between the time that Stephen parked his car and he appears on video walking out of view. He rang the neighbor's doorbell. By the time the neighbor got to the door, Stephen was walking on to the other side of the street. I need money. The neighbor said he remembered Stephen saying, there's no walkway on the other side, but he is walking on the side that doesn't have the walkway. I just shut the door, and that's the last time that I saw him. So once again, police found the car abandoned in the cul-de-sac. The items in it, investigators think, and his family think, that Stephen was planning to return to the car. So we went through all that. So there is no record of why Stephen ended up in Anthem, with no new clues into what happened to Stephen. A team from Utah-based Eyes On Private Investigations is working to find answers. The private investigators believe that Stephen's conversation with the neighbor may have led to a fatal mistake. One of the investigators says, I think he went to the home that he was supposed to go to, and actually says oh, kind of funny. I told the guy and asked him if he wanted some money. I think that's what resulted in Stephen's disappearance. I don't understand what he's saying at all. So, but very odd. So, a police report indicates that officers interviewed one neighbor after Stephen's disappearance. Police said the neighbor appeared, quote, nervous when contacted while being questioned about Stephen's disappearance. According to documents, the person said they did not recognize Stephen. They had no friends and, quote, did not trust anyone due to the substance lifestyle that people tend to have. Police have not named that person as a suspect, nor have officers charged him or her with a crime. Another neighbor told police shortly after Stephen's disappearance that another neighbor moved out of the neighborhood on the same day. And when police attempted to talk to the resident, they noticed there was no furniture in the house. The private investigators also obtained photos from a home in the neighborhood taken shortly after Stephen's disappearance, which show several holes in the walls and other damage. It is the same property the men suspect Stephen was heading in those last moments caught on video. So that's interesting. The investigator says, we have photos of a room that was destroyed at about the same time. Is that based on a struggle and a fight and a death? Is it based on a struggle, a fight, and a kidnapping? Is it based on somebody who is just mad? We don't know. So because Stephen disappeared 13 years ago, many of the neighbors who owned homes and who spoke to the police in those days and months after Stephen's disappearance are no longer there. One day after video captured what are believed to be Stephen's final moments alive, someone called Stephen's voicemail box from his cell phone, records showed. The cell phone signal then continued to ping off a tower near US 95 and Russell Road for 3 days until the device died. Once again, both St. George Police and Henderson Police are investigating the case. Neither department has arrested anyone, nor has either department filed charges or named any person of interest in the disappearance. So the private investigators suspect that Stephen is deceased and buried in the Las Vegas Valley. However small, the neighbor hopes that short conversation may help locate Stephen. The neighbor said, I'm prepared to help the family however I can put closure on this story. So it's very strange. I don't know. Possibly he went to the neighbors and said something about money. Anyway, I think that is all I had on Stephen. Ooh, let's get caught up right quick again in comments and we will get out of here. So I'm about to lose my voice. But I appreciate everybody for sticking around for 3.5 hours tonight. Let's see where I left off at here. Here we go. So that one, yeah, Arctic was right. That one, very strange. So either he met with a nefarious end or he did just walk away somewhere and take his own life. Because, you know, it's a family said, obviously, you know, he wouldn't, you know, do anything like that. But, you know, obviously you would never want to believe that, you know, a family member, a loved one would want to take their own life, you know. I think I lost my place again. Yeah, Vegas. JP said Vegas. Thankfully, I don't live there. I remember, I mean, because I have not been there since they legalized the Mary Jane. I went several times, probably 3 or 4 times before. And it was actually, it's not bad. I mean, I'm not a gambler, so I like Fremont Street was cool. The Gangster Museum was cool. Of course, seeing all the big hotels and the lights at night is fascinating, you know, beautiful. But yeah, my baby brother and sister-in-law did take a trip out there after it was legalized, and they said it wasn't, I mean, it was horrible. Nothing like it, you know, used to be. Of course, it wasn't perfect before, obviously, you know, you hear about things that happen in Vegas, but they said it was just even worse after. You know, nothing against people who partake in that, but you know. Oh, thank you. It's pronounced Koecher. Thank you, Arctic. If Arctic is still here, but he said Stephen Koecher. Okay, so I was not pronouncing it the right way. Thank you, sir. Um, I watched a couple episodes of that. JP says he liked the Dan Aykroyd host the Unbelievable. I can't remember what channel it's on now. Is it on Discovery? I watched a couple episodes of that. It's also on Hulu. I think they did show it on Discovery at some point. You can't see what? Miss Peggy said it bugs me. I can't see the chat and the video at the same time. Are you on the laptop? Sometimes if you're on if I'm watching a laptop and I accidentally hit a button, it changes the whole layout, and that happens to me. The chat disappears, or it goes to a different place and you can't see it. I don't know how I fix it. I may just close out the window and then bring it back up. I would like to meet Harrison Ford too. JP says my favorite actor I want to meet is Harrison Ford. Heather says Clint Eastwood. Now that, yeah, Sam Elliott. I love me some Sam Elliott. Shibi says 1979 was a good year. Oh, Miss Peggy agrees with Sam Elliott. We got some Sam Elliott fans. Ah, Denzel too. JP mentioned Denzel. What Doodle? What is that, Doodle? Doodle may have fallen asleep on the keyboard or something. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh good lord. You talking about Keanu Reeves, JP? You talking about John Wick? Keanu played John Wick. I think, right? Was he in here? If he was in here, I missed him. I apologize if I did. Um, policy considered suspicious. You talking about Stephen's case? I don't know. I'm torn on this. I mean, he. Part of me says, yeah, he went out there and took his own life because you know his financial situation or whatever else he may have had going on. But I mean, you never know. Anytime somebody disappears, just you know, it's suspicious until you know we find out otherwise that they you know left of their own accord. They get in touch with the loved one to say, "Hey, I'm fine. I had to get away or whatever." Um, hey, Al. Hey, Dave. Dave is listening and driving. Good to see you, Dave. Please do check out Dave. Absolutely. Everybody is welcoming Dave. Yes, we love Dave. Thank you. Arctic put in Dave's channel. Thank you. Miss Barb says this is where the kind people are. Absolutely. This is a great community. Yeah, I got to get back over. I watched Mind the Monsters. Miss Peggy mentioned Mind the Monsters. She had a live stream the other night. Yeah, their family's been going through some stuff lately. So just thoughts and prayers and good vibes definitely going out to them. Absolutely. Is that your theory? I don't know if you're talking about Stephen or if I missed something in chat. Says he went to get more weed and never came back. Possible. Thank you, Arctic. He's probably already gone. Thank you to Arctic for being here. Thank you, sir. You're very kind. I don't know how far I'm behind. Oh, just 7 minutes. Thank you, Mustang. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're fixing to get out of here. I'm just fixing to get caught up on these comments, make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you so much, Miss Barbara. Miss Nicole says, I've heard of this guy before somewhere, probably on YouTube. Yeah. Thank you, Miss Heather. Thank you, Miss Peggy. Yeah, we were talking about Sam Elliott. I love me some Sam Elliott. Oh, ever since I watched Mask with him and Cher and oh crap, shoot, one of my favorite actors that played the oh my god, my brain is gone. Thank you, Miss Carol. Thank you, Miss Paula. Yeah, it may be the set, Miss Peggy. It may be the setting on your laptop. Usually on my laptop, when I'm watching a live stream or YouTube video on my laptop, or live stream, it's got the video on the left and the chat box is on the right. And then I'll be trying to type in the chat and accidentally hit the wrong button, and it switches everything around, and I lose the chat. I don't know. I think I just close out the window and then reopen it, and it's fixed. I don't know if that'll work or not. Did JP disappear? Oh goodness. Oh yep. Heather said he was the hottest on Mask. I know. Dang, now I'm gonna have to look up because I love Eric Stoltz played what was the character's name? Rusty. Rusty was the mom. Hold on, I'm gonna have to look it up. I love Mask. I haven't watched that movie in so long. But yeah, it was him, Sam Elliott, Cher, and Eric Stoltz, and other people, but they were the main ones. Came out in 1985. Yep, he played it. Sam Elliott played a biker. Yeah, Eric Stoltz played Roy Dennis. It's based on a true story. Cher played Rusty, his mom. Sam Elliott played Gar. Laura Dern was in it. Dennis Berkeley and the Helmet. Yeah, it's a good movie. Anyway, yes, very good movie. All right, guys. I think that's all. Yep, that was the last one. So we're gonna get out of here. Hopefully, if something doesn't come up, I'll be able to do a true crime after dark Friday night. We'll talk about some stuff. I got a lot of stuff saved up in my browser again, some cold case stories, some missing persons, and whatever else we want to, true crime after dark is a little bit looser, than we are on Mondays, so we can talk about whatever. But you guys have a good rest of your week. Be safe. Be careful. Always don't be paranoid. Don't be scared. Just be prepared. Always be aware of your surroundings. Take care of each other. As always, since I haven't got my new outro done yet, I'll leave you with the fur babies. And hopefully I will see you guys Friday.